Hello, everybody. Good to see you all here. Hope you're all doing well. So how has everyone's week been so far? Hope everyone had a chill week. Hello, Lily. Hello, Burak. Hello, Fernando. Snowbat and Leia. Slate. Good to see you all here. Hello, Satish. Can't call it a chill week. Uh-oh. What's happening, Slate? What is happening? Let's switch on over. For me, it was literally a chill week. It's been a rough week. Oh, God. What's happening in everyone's week? Fair. I read that as hee instead of hi. Good to see you here, Fair. Very cold outside. Okay, that's good. That's good. I do like the cold, though. I'm not gonna lie. I do like myself a bit of cold. To be fair, it's pretty cold in here as well. Usually during the stream it warms up because it got the PC blasting, so that's gonna be good. Start moving some stuff around. Your week was great, Fernando. That's awesome. That is awesome. Hey, Adam. Just talking about how everyone's week has been. Sergio is saying, me too. Autumn is my favorite season, if I think about it. I think so, too. Like, it's... I don't know. Like, there's something, like, poetic or whatever you want to call it about, like, the seasons changing and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I really like fall, you know? I don't mind the rain. I don't mind like how gloomy it gets outside. It's actually like an excuse to get quite cozy. Love the colors. Yeah, the colors are so pretty as well. I love going for like forest walks and all that kind of stuff in autumn. So beautiful. Warmer, cozy clothes. This is my my favorite warm shirt that I have on as well. So I'm prepped. I'm prepped for autumn. Say my PC is my room heater. Yeah, it's quite nice. You know, you don't have to put like the heater on because you got a pre-built one. You get some performance back for it as well. Still warm and nice, not too cold. I like the balance it has. Yeah, there is also. Yeah, I think the worst kind of weather it's when it's like just like that. It's raining, but it's not really, but you're still getting wet, but it's not like enough to take an umbrella out, that kind of rain, you know? Like, ugh, that's probably like the worst. Oh, depends on where you live. I live in Los Angeles. Not much change in the seasons. Yeah, I've never been in a place where you don't really have a change of seasons. I've always lived on like the same sort of, what's it called? Is it longitude or latitude? I think it's latitude, right? So, yeah, it's been pretty consistent. Hello, Sheila. Good to see you here. Istanbul is getting cloudy and rainy these days, finally. Hell yeah. Probably gets, like, freaking hot over there. I've never experienced different seasons. That is so weird. I mean, there's, like, a lot of weird stuff, right? Like, for example, we got, like, a bunch of, like, people from Australia in our community, and when they say that like, oh, it's Christmas and I'm on the beach, you know, Like that doesn't compute in my brain. That doesn't make sense at all to me. So yeah. But yeah, it's good to see that everyone's chilling with the cold weather. How was my week? Let's have a look. So, I'm still hesitant to talk about a thing that I want to talk about. So I'm not going to do that here just yet. But there is some news coming soon that is not going to upend anything, not anything for the community, but it's going to be a big change from myself. But enough said about that. What else did we talk about? So we're in full prep for the team challenges. I've been doing a lot of Discord cleanup, so been preparing for all the team challenges. Be prepared for all the team challenges, going through like all the documentation that we've set up, making sure that everything is still okay. We're in a good stage. We've also announced like our first judge as well. So Zerakan is going to be joining us again. Zerakan did an amazing workshop for us. So he's coming back to be our first judge. We're still, we have 2 other judges that are going to be confirmed really soon. One of them is already like fully confirmed. The other one is still in the works. And then we also have, currently what we're doing is we're going for 10 mentors. So 10 mentors that will be helping us run the team challenges. I am also a mentor myself. I will probably take like the bulk of the team challenge meetings that we have, right? I basically act as like a springboard for other people. But yeah, the goal is that we have 10 people that are going to be helping us. It's looking good so far. We have, I think, about 6 confirmed, and we're in talks with like a bunch of other people. So that is making some really good progress. I honestly, yeah, this ramp up is always like, gets me excited to get back into team challenge stuff. What else has been happening? We've been doing a lot of work on the courses. More on that soon. I think it's always more effective if I show like an update to the website and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, like it's been, for myself, it's been a pretty slow week because there's a bunch of stuff happening. Work is ramping up. So it's been a little bit of chaotic on my side to kind of find like the balance again because stuff keeps shifting around. So yeah, not too much more to say on that front, honestly. I just wanted to keep you all in the loop a little bit. Hello, Route 1. Hello, Sia. Still 29 degrees here. Jesus. Yeah. I think we get like 1 week of that, like here. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but sometimes it kind of does feel like that. Hey CJ, good to see you here. How you doing? So for people that are new to the stream, let me just quickly give an introduction of what this is. I'm Timothy Dries. I'm an environment artist, well, senior environment artist in the games industry. I've been in the games industry for about 10 years now. And this is basically like a weekly get-together where we're going to be looking at the community and the community's work in just like half an hour or something like that. So yeah, this is my weekly time slot where I give people feedback and yeah, hopefully help other people to get into the industry as environment artists as well. So yeah, if you have any questions about like game dev, environment art, whatever you want to ask about, feel free to ask away and then we can chat about it as well. Barry's saying here it's 37 degrees every single day of the year. Jesus Christ. Where do you live? Like, what country do you live, Fair? Because that is... What is that, like, South America? Yeah, I get cooked. Yeah, same here. Like, I'm not built for that weather. There's no way. That is on another level. There's, I'm not a big fan of the heat. Nope, me either. I am just not built for it. I come from like a small, like, I don't know, like a small rainy like little country called Belgium, you know, like gray weather is our middle name for most of the time. Same with the UK. I feel like we share like, I don't know, I think we share like most of the rain anyway. So having that, oh god, that is crazy. In Canada, 37 degrees is not that rare anymore. Ooh. It's often very gray in the Netherlands too. Yeah, it sure is. Fernando, I'm starting Think Tank this week. So this will help getting some more feedback on my projects. Hell yeah, Fernando. It's going to be awesome. We have a bunch of people like enrolling into Think Tank, it seems. Also, I have not been keeping up, but what the hell is happening with CGMA? Does anyone know? Actually, I'm kind of curious, like, because I've sort of been looking at it, and the only thing that I know from like the whole CGMA thing that is happening is that the instructors haven't been paid for the last month, I think. And it looks like there's been a whole bunch of like leaked documents and all that kind of stuff that's been happening where basically they filed to dissolve their company. I think though that filing was more that they wanted to move their headquarters for their business, but then it still feels like a weird move. So yeah, it feels really weird. Like Tyler Edlin, like a 2D artist that I follow for a long time. I love to listen to like his YouTube channel as well. He was like pretty much affected by it too. Yeah, so it's weird. But it's like you got like the original founder of CGMA like filed like to dissolve CGMA basically, but then that got blocked by their parent company now, which is Domestika, I think, and they own like their own platform with like a whole bunch of courses. All of those courses are way too cheap. Like you can literally buy like a lot of them for like 99 cents, which I don't know. I think it's a tactic to get you in and then charge you more. I have no idea how that works. I'm just speculating. But yeah. Time for Tim to make the Beyond Extent Master Academy. We're working on it. We're working on it, Sia. A little bit more time. But yeah, it's freaking crazy. Let me see. Let me see if there's any more news on it. Yeah. So Pat Marconi Art is saying, sadly, after 7 years with CGMA. Okay, let's have a look here. Let me share this on my second screen. Is it this one? Yeah, there we go. Okay, this is threads. I don't use threads, so let's have a look. Pat Marconet is saying that all classes will be cancelled for the foreseeable future. The parent company Domestika fired most of the support staff, has not paid instructors for the last term. So I'm looking into moving my class to another platform, so stay tuned. That is freaking crazy. I saw some of this stuff coming out. That is crazy though. It doesn't seem to be too much about it. Let's see. Let's see. I think someone mentioned. Yeah, so. Yeah, see, important legal notice, a dissolution filing for CGMA dated November 14th, 2024 is now before the court. Pending court guidance, course operations are paused and preservation hold is in effect. This is freaking crazy. So CGMA recently identified a certificate of dissolution on November 14th with the California State Secretary of State. Under California law, a dissolved corporation may only act to wind up its affairs. Yeah. Please preserve all records, invoices already issued, deliverables, messages. Do not issue any new invoices or take operational instructions outside of official notices. We will contact you with the court requests information. This is crazy. Because that's from a year ago. Like that certificate of dissolution. Yeah, that is crazy. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see what this is gonna pan out to. Is this the reason Jared Sabata from moved his vegetation course from CGMA to Vessel Forge? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Yeah, I have no clue. But I mean, I would not be surprised. Like Vessel Forge is run. I forgot. Oh, dang it! I forgot who runs it. But it's run by like industry veterans. So like, if it's artist owned, like they have like a better. You have like your interest at heart, right? Like if you're an artist yourself and you want to run courses, and if it's run by an artist with like a business mindset, I feel like there's always gonna be a better outcome there than just like going to another business guy. Let's see. So Fernando, I think this company are starting to use AI to make cheaper courses. So here's the thing. Like what I speculate, right? And I'm just speculating here. But I think what's happening is that Domestika was like, okay, we have all these people running courses, giving weekly feedback, blah, 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 blah. That is all well and good, but that adds a lot of overhead to the company, right? So what I think they actually want to do, or like what my assumption would be if I put my cynical cap on, is that they would just get rid of all the teachers, grab all the content that is there, because they probably signed it over with like their initial agreements with CGMA anyway, right? And then take that content, wrap it up in like, oh, this is just going to be offline courses. You just watch pre-recorded content, and then move it into their main platform, which is Domestika, and have like a whole game art section. And that's how they build it out. If I was skeptical, like that would be the move, because like, what else would be the reason to buy up another competitor if you can't do anything meaningful and like merge it within like your own stuff, right? I don't know. Lydia is saying, I thought CGMA was doing well money-wise. I have no clue, right? It's kind of hard to tell that, but I would assume so. But still, it is that overhead, I think, right? Where you have to constantly keep all those teachers on, and if you don't do that consistently and you don't put in like a lot of effort, then yeah, I think that the easiest thing for Domestika to do is just be like, hey, look, we're just gonna scrap all this stuff. It's too much effort, and we're just gonna move all the content into Domestika. I don't know. Call me skeptical. But yeah, I think there might be some AI stuff there too. To be honest, I can see AI stuff working for a lot of more popular, more common design work, right? For particular game art stuff, AI alone is not going to work. I love experimenting with this, right? Like I will ask it questions. As soon as you go pretty niche or you want to know specific workflows, it just shits the bed. Like it cannot give you like an accurate enough answer on how to do something in a way that makes sense. So I don't think that's a viable route. But I mean, they have all the content from the previous teachers anyway, right? They just like repackage it, put it on their own website, and that's the thing. So yeah, I guess we'll see what's gonna happen with this one. We will see, but it's not good. I mean, kind of sucks. Like I really enjoyed CGMA. Not as like me personally doing it, but I recommended a lot of people to CGMA. I know a lot of the people that are involved with CGMA, and they all really try to put like really good content out there on that platform. To see it go down in this way is like really sad. Like it's honestly, it's genuinely just disrespectful to like all the teachers that were working there. I had no idea that CGMA was a part of Domestika. I think they got bought out like a year ago or something like that. So it's relatively recent. So who knows? Maybe in that contract between Domestika and CGMA, right? They had an agreement somewhere where at a certain point, like all the content would just go over. Maybe that's coming into effect. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point. We'll just have to wait and see. Let's have a look. EA has been sold recently. Yes. Yeah, Lily. Other big news what was it? They bought it for 50 billion to a Saudi Arabia fund, right? Like a Saudi Arabia fund and some partners in there as well. So, oh, sorry, I missed a casual 5 billion there, Burak. These sums are like so like unfathomable. Like it is sometimes so weird to think about like the cascade, right? Like I'm running my own business. I'm not complaining how much we're making. We're not making 55 billion, but it's also not like we're being cushy, right? And then you have like companies like that just like scrape in cash. It is just crazy to think about like how well oiled that machine is to then be sold for like that enormous amount of money. And then Route 1 is saying potentially EA doing layoffs to do wanting to move more towards AI. Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty there, right? It is weird. I started looking into it only yesterday evening. But apparently they got saddled with like, God, what was the number? I think 18 billion like in debt or something like that because of this buyout. They're gonna have to make that money somehow, right? So it's forcing them to really look into like how they can streamline and optimize their operation, right? Whether that means doing layoffs or whatever, I don't know. I think only time will tell. Again, it's really difficult to be super positive about this stuff, right? Like in general, like if we strip away like all the parties involved and like just a company being bought out to then go private and not having to deal with the public perception of having like a public stock and having public shareholders and all that kind of stuff, seems to me like it was I can sort of get behind that, right? But on the other side, that also means that you're still beholden to like the people that bought you up, right? Like that Saudi Arabia fund is not going to be like, okay, cool, we bought you guys. We're not going to worry about it. You know, you do you. That's not going to happen. So they want a return on their money as well. So we're going to see what kind of pressure that is going to shape into, right? For how much would you sell BE? Is 1 billion enough? I'll take a casual 1 billion, you know? Yeah. I mean, that is such a crazy amount of money. Like if you really think about it, right? Like, I mean, 1 billion is such a crazy amount of money. Like what I would do is sell BE, right? I would just like start my own educational company again. Then buy like a massive school, buy all the equipment, and then just get everyone that was a part of BE that wants to join us, like have them just like be at the school, you know, and then we'll make it like an actual institutional thing. And then I'll teach them like in real life. Like 1 billion is so much money. Like it's unfathomable. That would be crazy. Slate is saying the private investors could do much better of a job to create better games, to be honest. EA recently was just creating bad games, excluding Battlefield 6. Well, but here's the thing though. Like, those private companies, they don't give a fuck about the games, right? So EA is still the people, like they're still employing the same people that made the decisions that went into those quote-unquote bad games, right? So they're still there. And the next game might just suck again. That is not an incentive that's been said by the private or the public investor sector, right? Like even if I invest in a stock, right? Like I buy that stock with the anticipation that they're going to do well and that you get to own like a sliver of the company, right? We can all participate in that system. And the only thing that's maybe different there is that if you have enough shares, you can sit into the shareholder meeting and you can cast a vote and all that kind of stuff, right? Depending on the company. Now that vote is just more centralized. So that doesn't mean that it's going to create like better games. That still depends on like EA and what they want to do, right? Because the private shareholders don't have a say over like what games they make or how they make the games. They just get to say like, hey, look, I don't like Andrew Wilson because he doesn't make enough money for me, which he definitely does. So yeah, I don't think anything is gonna change there in the incentive structure. It's like an ecosystem these days, not a game company. Yeah, I think there's something interesting happening with scale of companies, right? Where at a certain point, like a company is too big to be really efficient to make really good games in the way that just like older games did. Because if you go back to like Battlefield 3 or like before that, right? The size of those companies were just like way smaller now, and now you work with that size of a team, but that is only your core team, and then you outsource to like multiple companies, and like content goes everywhere, comes back in different shapes and sizes. It is chaotic. That oil money can change everything. Yeah, to me that is the biggest. When I started reading into it, that is the biggest thing that I just didn't like, is that the people that invested in the EA, like they don't really care about games themselves, right? Which I don't know how that's gonna pan out. Like it might be that also means that EA gets a lot of freedom and they can actually focus on just making the best games without a lot of pressure from like investors, right? That might be a good thing. Or they might also be like very hands-on and just be like, hey, look, I just want you to make more money, do whatever you need to do, make more money. I don't care about the game, you know? And put a lot of pressure that way. So on that front, it's gonna be kind of time will tell, I think. But it seems that they're not really they didn't, to me at least, they didn't buy EA because they're interested in games. They just want to diversify their own economy, right? And that's why they're doing like this whole digital push, and EA is just a part of that. Which is, yeah. I don't necessarily like that part of it. I remember when Digital Tutors was the biggest 3D website out there, and Pluralsight bought it and completely destroyed 3D, and now it's all coding stuff. So annoying. Remember, I was so angry. God, yeah, Digital Tutors, Jesus. I completely forgot that whole saga with like Pluralsight, because I remember signing up to Pluralsight at a certain point, and I was like, okay, there's probably some stuff that I can pick up from here. And then I tried a couple of lessons, and it was all just like stuff that was way less interesting than most of the stuff you can find on YouTube. And I was just like, okay, why are people paying for this? Like, I can watch this stuff for free. No? So weird. So weird. Saudi Arabia is really pushing sports games right now. Oh, let's see. I was back in the earlier 2000s. Yeah, I remember like all the old DVDs, like the E3D, like with the bulldozer like on the front and like all that kind of stuff. I never had them because it was so expensive, but yeah, they were interesting. So Saudi Arabia is really pushing sports games right now. It's everywhere on their TV channels and a lot of other products. Coke, for example, often show teenagers gaming. FIFA is one of the biggest games there, and football is very popular too. I mean, honestly, like, it's not only there, right? Like, FIFA is, like, consistently, like, the top seller in, like, any game, in any country, right? Like, year on year, people keep buying that stuff. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. In Brazil, it's big too. Oh yeah, I bet. If your country has like a thriving like soccer or football, like, I don't know, enthusiasm going, I bet you that there's just straight up conversion into FIFA or FC, whatever they call it now. So yeah, so buying EA makes sense. I mean, yeah, and then they also got like a shit ton of money too, right? So it's like, okay, we're gonna diversify. Let me we spend like 50 billion here. I mean, look at all the other stuff they're doing, right? Like, the line and like Neom and like all those cities in the middle of a freaking desert with like blown out of proportion budgets and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. It seems like they're just like throwing money and seeing what's gonna happen. Hey, Zeno, welcome. But yeah, it is very interesting. I guess we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. First, I'm honestly more curious what's gonna happen with CGMA, right? Because obviously we are building our own like online academy too. So that is in a weird way like something very interesting to watch out. For. Like both in like, oh, there's like a bunch of like teaching talent that's on the market now. That could be an opportunity for us. But also a bunch of my friends just got like their side gig or like their side income, or in some cases their main income completely destroyed. So it's kind of weird. It's been a weird week. It is. I feel like it's been a weird like year. Unreal made it really easy to make games nowadays. There's a lot of indie companies making games like crazy. That also means that the quality will drop so big. Not necessarily. I don't think necessarily. I think the big issue is just discoverability, right? And that's the current issue that we have with like within indie games, is that there's so much stuff coming onto the market all the time. Why? And I think a lot of that has just affected like indie games, where like, okay, like you release in this week and then it's just like, oh god, like, okay, we missed our point, right? Because everyone's playing another game this week. That's a strong point. This is why gamer rage is a thing. Oh, gamer rage was always a thing though. It's weirdly just like exacerbated by like social media. Don't you think so? I feel like those very loud voices were always there. It's just now they just got a megaphone through social media and they get so much more attention. Because what is interesting to me is that you would look on the one side you have data, right? So on the one side you have data where like people buying games, all that kind of stuff, and like streaming data, like how much they actually spend looking at a game. And then on the opposite side you have like the public sentiment. But I think public sentiment has become like less and less reliable of a metric, because I was really surprised to hear that like Assassin's Creed Shadows has been the second best-selling game in the UK after FIFA. And just from like the public sentiment, you wouldn't expect that to happen. But it is. I think it was like last year's data or like current data or whatever. But those two, like they don't match together, right? It just feels like a weird thing. Yeah, true, but stuttery and smeary Unreal Engine 5 garbage is all around. Yeah. But I don't know, I'm so skeptical with that. I get that it is a thing, right? And it's definitely it is an issue. Like there's no denying that like for the games that you don't do like shader preloading or pre-caching or whatever. Like that has now become a thing to try to avoid that, which is also like it feels like a temporary option. But yeah, it only takes like a little bit to change people's perception, I think. And I think the actual data surrounding it is actually less impactful than just like the public sentiment again, right? I think, to say it in a better way, that the public sentiment is like overblowing an issue. At least that's what I'm feeling about it. It just feels like it just takes everything to like the extreme. Totally, the same with AC Valhalla, sold 50 million copies. Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. With Valhalla, I had the feeling that like people weren't as tired yet with AC. I think it was happening, but oh. Who knows? This is also like real anecdotal data, right? I'm just like seeing what I'm seeing and just like, I don't know, seeing what's out there. For me, it's insane how much GTA 5 sold. It's a crazy amount. I think if you want to be surprised by that data, it's not only looking at the sales, but also like how their microtransaction income is. I think honestly, that's why like GTA 6 got delayed, or like it took such a long time. It's not only because it's a really big game to make, it's also because they still make a shit ton of money on shard cards. It's ridiculous. Out of the box, may I ask, what's your headphones? Yeah, it's a Sony MX4s. They're really good. Hello, Amber. Thanks so much for the summoning by Adam. Our local BE satanic priest just summoning people. See, the compilation is an issue with all games using DX11 and 12, not specific to Unreal. Unreal is a popular indie engine, so it makes sense for its reputation to be tied with that. Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like, I think what is also happening, and we actually talked about this in the community Discord, is that there are channels that realize that like rage baiting and like negativity like spreads like way quicker than anything else. So what they're doing is they saw people getting angry about like stuttering in their games, and then you have certain people that come up to like the forefront and are just like making use of that, right? They're making use of that energy and then making like a shit ton of videos about that to then build up their own like YouTube channel, right? There's like some insidious stuff going on there. But yeah. People complaining about stuttering are the same people with a decade-old GPU. I think also like that for a certain percentage that might be true, right? But I also know that I have like a 3090, which is like, okay, it's an older card, but also like, god dang, like it's supposed to be running like a bunch of stuff really well. But I also get the same stuttering in certain games too. But I think the issue is that there's so many components that could go wrong with like your hardware or with the software or with drivers or whatever, that if you don't have them all like optimized and you keep them all up to date and in good condition, that could also be the issue, right? And then obviously like devs are also trying to adapt to like all these new changes that are coming in to Unreal Engine 5, and they're trying to keep up, and then they run into issues, and especially indie games like, oh, there's all this new tech, like, oh, it kind of seems to work great out of the box, but then you also need to support like the wide range of someone still running a 1080 Ti versus like another person running a 1590, you know? It is crazy. But to me, it kind of comes down to the same thing, right? Like the people that have issues, they kind of get blown out of proportion now, just because that is just like the negativity machine, right? Gets more attention now. Thoughts on the 5.6 Unreal Engine 5 update? No, because I haven't touched Unreal in like a year. Oh, is that the one where they added like the voxelized? Oh, I think I saw like a couple bits of it where they have like their own like speed tree inside of Unreal now with like voxelized. God dang it! What's the best way of saying this? Like voxelized LODs for like trees, I guess, right? Never tried it, but it looks complicated. Yeah, from what I've seen, so I heard rumblings about this where people were saying like, oh, the way to set this up is that you, just as a quick overview, the way that they made the system, from what I could tell with like skimming through it like really quickly, is that they want you to set up the branches individually and then use like a BCG like system to then scatter it on the main trunk, and then you have like on those branches you then scatter like your individual leaves or something like that, right? And then there's like automated like voxelization and all that kind of stuff built in, which makes sense. I'm curious to like carve out some time like in the near future to like try out like all these new things and just go through it to kind of understand it. Phoenix Vixen, I wonder if Borderlands 4 problems can be solved with some tuning and instance level objects. I have not kept up with like the Borderlands 4 drama that's been going on. Not necessarily drama, but performance issues, I guess. So I've got no idea. But if usually when you think that the solution is really easy, it's usually not. That's the game dev guarantee that I'll give there. Because if it was just like, oh, packing stuff into like instance level objects, they would have done that. It's hard to get a list of all possible material and feature permutations. Generally, that's done during playtesting. These possibilities are gathered to a list. It's PSO, pre-caching, and bundling. If executed well, it will cache everything. And after a shader compilation, the first time you run the game, you won't get shader stuttering anymore. Yeah, I think that was like the workaround, right? That was the workaround when it came to like, oh, people like have issues with stuttering and all that kind of stuff. Which is, I guess there's currently no other way to do it. But I kind of don't like it as a system, where like now you have to wait on your first install and all that kind of stuff. It feels like we lost something. But I'm also too dumb to understand like what in the back end like meant that now we have to do like shader pre-caching compared to like older games. I mean, I can get it from like an artistic level, right? Because GPU hardware is not fixed and identical anymore like it used to be before 2010. Okay. Yeah, see, that's where I'm out of my technical debt. I just want to make pretty pictures, honestly. That's all I want to do. And then someone else can take care of how they run. Which also might be part of the issue, but don't let me tell you that. Cowboy music in the back sounds so funny. Yeah, we're trying some new music today. Beautifully composed by Marika. It's crazy how Unreal Engine 5.7 already came out. Yeah, I'm not keeping up. Like, I'm not keeping up. I believe you can get really high resolution material captures if they're compiled at runtime. Got no idea. That's why technical artists exists. Exactly. So that, like, just artists like me can just focus on making it prettier. By the time I get a job, it's gonna be Unreal Engine 6. Here's a funny story. So, I thought the same thing. I was like, hey, I made up my mind. I'm gonna go into game dev. I want to work on like Fallout 4 because I was playing a lot of Fallout 3 at that point. And Fallout 4 actually released before I got into the industry, and I was really pissed by that. I was like, no, I lost my chance. And now looking in hindsight with like Fallout 76 and all that kind of stuff, I was like, yeah, I kind of lost a good chance there. But hey. Oh well. At what age did I get in? Oh, hello, Stefan. Sorry, I didn't see you there. At what age did I get in? God, I have to count back because I don't keep track of my own age, as stupid as that sounds. 23? 22, 23, something like that? No, let's say 23, 24. Because I started almost 10 years ago. Hello, Hudson. Good to see ya. Bum, bum, bum. But yeah. Yeah, it's been an amazing ride so far. Damn, I need to log in then? I mean, yeah, it's interesting to think like I had this conversation with a couple of people in DMs like over the past couple of weeks where people are really afraid of their age and like how quick they need to get in and all that kind of stuff. I don't think age is any determinant in like how quick or how easy it is to get into the games industry. Yeah, see, exactly. That's like the sort of vibe that I wanted to avoid, right, Burak? Like if you're at the age of 23, you should not be scared. I know people that joined in their 40s. I know people that joined when they were 18. I know people that were doing like fucking mental work, like way better than the stuff that I'm doing today when they were 16. It's all the same thing, you know? Like the only thing that matters is like the comparison game that can go up endlessly, and you know, don't get distracted by that. The only thing that matters is, and it's going to sound so frivolous, is that you enjoy the things that you're doing and that you also learn about yourself in the process, right? So, yeah, that's the most important thing. I know that this sounds like, frankly speaking, bullshit right now, but yeah, trust me on that one. You're going to learn a lot about yourself too. If I had one guy tell me if I had to choose between someone at 28 and 21, he would hire the 21. You can honestly, okay, I'm going to be pretty blunt. If based on that factor alone, you want to hire someone, that's dumb. That is straight up dumb. Because what the fuck? Like nothing that actually matters to the job, like, is there, right? Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Abdu and Stefan, like that 28 might also like be like really immature, right? Who knows? Who knows? Like what actually matters is like, you know, first things first, your portfolio. That's the thing that matters. And then if you're a nice person as well, have that on top there, you're already golden. You know? Because yeah, there's a bunch of people with like amazing portfolios that suck as human beings. They also didn't get a job. There's also a bunch of people that were really nice, but they didn't have the portfolio. Sometimes they do get hired, sometimes they don't. But like just purely based on like age, that's like ridiculous. We're all artists developing at our own pace and time. Yeah, exactly. So we should wait until we get 28. Yeah. 28 is like the magic number to get into the industry. So you just need to wait it out. Okay, wrong advice only. Don't even bother working on your portfolio. Just wait. Just wait. Wait until 28 and then the door just magically opens, you know? God, if you I'm 28. Okay. Well, you're 28 right now, right? So the year's not over. So we're still good, right? I'm a lost cause. I'm 27. No, you're fine. You're fine. The door's gonna open, I swear. Oh, great. I'm 35. Oh, no, don't. I won't even look at your portfolio. You're 35. It's too old. Oh my god, that sounded like a clip. Oh my god. That is so weird though. Like, literally, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it like that. So the first person that I ever mentored, like she was late 30s, early 40s. And I think what some people brought up in the chat before, right? You bring like a certain like life experience that like someone from like 18 or 21 like doesn't bring to the table, right? And then if you add that on top of your portfolio experience, if you are like a nice person to work with, like all that kind of stuff, that is only going to be to your benefit, I think. So age doesn't really matter. I up until a certain point, I guess, because there's always going to be a drop off, I feel, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's still like an industry that demands a lot of you, right? I'm clipping that out of context. Dang it, Stefan. No. But there is definitely going to be a fall off because this industry is so demanding, right? God, I wouldn't recommend like someone in their 50s or 60s like doing this in a commercial setting, right? If you want to make art, you want to do 3D, you want to make environments, freaking go for it, right? And I'll be there to help you. But God, this industry is rough. So it's not even necessarily about like the ability to do art or how good you are as an artist. It's just, God, this industry can sometimes spit you out. Maddie, 4 months until 29. Oh shit, 4 months left to go. The clock's ticking. Phoenix is saying, oi, I'm 39. God. But I've always enjoyed that about making art, right? Like, I've always enjoyed that. How did this convo start? I think, God, that's a good question, actually. Oh, I think it was because Lily brought up that it was someone that they talked to was choosing between 28 or 21. They would always hire someone from 21. That's how we got started. Route 1, you said to your mom, I chose the hardest industry. Well, yeah, here it is, right? Like, the industry was already hard to get into. But now what got added on top is that our industry got kind of decimated by all the money flooding out and going to AI kind of stuff, right? So that's been happening at the same point as well. A lot of wider job security and job market instability happening too, which just led to a bunch of companies just like not really hiring. Which also meant that like if they're opening up hiring now, that means that there's going to be a bigger back catalog of juniors or people that are trying to get in. So it sucks, but you just got really dealt like a bad hand. Again, I don't want to demotivate anyone, right? But it's interesting to know, or like it's at least good to know where you stand and then still fight for it. Because I believe that if you still put in the work, you ask a lot of feedback, you are really objective about your work, you have the opportunity to move somewhere else, like you can still get in, right? But it became harder than it's ever been. Hudson is saying also it's okay to give up if it's not working for you. There are endless possibilities that you can still do, and you can still do 3D as a hobby still. Yeah, I think God, that's a difficult one, right? Because I agree. God, I agree, but I would never want to say that to someone. You know what I mean? Like it is really difficult. It is really hard, but also there are opportunities out there, right? And sometimes you have to make opportunities for yourself. I think if I were to put myself in someone else's shoes now, I would give it a good shot, right? Like I would give it a good shot and try to work for a company. If that doesn't work, if let's say I give myself a timeline, right? 6 months. Cool. If that doesn't work, then I'm just gonna go freelance. Try to do a bunch of stuff. Try to make asset packs. In the meantime, I'm just gonna see if there's like freelance jobs out there. Try to do remote stuff. Go through like the weird applications. Like see if there's maybe something there. It is so weird that like sometimes opportunities come out of like the least expected angles. For example, there's a friend of mine who recently got her first job into the industry, not in like the games industry itself, but the application sounded really, really shady. And then she actually kept on following through. She got some advice from other people, like watch out for this, watch out for that. And then at the end, she got like a really, really well-paying job for a company that does like ArcViz, but also wants to do like AR, VR applications too. So it's weird stuff. Some of that stuff can happen. But yeah. I think that's where job opportunities are gonna come from now, right? It's like you just find it in like the weird crevices. Stefan is asking, do you think there are more opportunities in AU or the US? So if you look at the data, from all the recent, and this is some of the stuff that I heard on a recent podcast, which was actually really interesting. The podcast is called like the games industry business. God dang it! Let me look this up for you. The podcast is called The Games Business Show with Christopher Dring. And he talked to Amir Satvan, I think. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but he got big trying to help people try to get a job, right? He has a lot of data collected now. And he basically said that like 50% or like 50 to 60% of all the job cuts happen in the US. So currently, it seems like the just like, I don't know, like the really frantic nature that the US goes about like recruiting and then laying off and all that kind of stuff is kind of biting them in the ass a little bit. Where in the EU, like it seems to be more stable just in terms of the numbers as well. How does that translate to opportunities, to go back to your question? God, I have no clue. I have no clue. It's it's actually a good question. I've been trying to figure it out for myself. But the thing is, like, I really don't have like an insight into the US market because that's not a market that I look at, right? So it's kind of hard to debate that. Like even think about it. I feel like nowadays recruiters will expect a lot on quality of your work, if you know what I mean. That was always the case though. That was always the case. Like you have to stand out, right? Like timing is a big one, but then also like the quality needs to be there. Let's have a look. So I feel like it's hard to break into the industry, but it's equally as hard to even keep a job for more than 6 months. Are you talking about like in the industry or just a job in general, Zoe? Because I feel like once you get in, I don't think it's necessarily that hard to maintain a job in games from my experience, right? Because it might look scary and you can there's actually an interesting thing where you can compare like a US like game worker and look at like the average length of their contract. My contracts or like my employments have always been longer than 2 years, like 2.5 years, right? I've just been getting quite unlucky with my studios, not getting new gigs twice now, so it's scaring me. Yeah, I get that. I get that. It's rough out there now. Obviously, I'm in a different position, right? I got lucky with my timing. So yeah. Yeah, you come in right at the end of production, and then there's only been 6 months because there's no more work. Yeah, that sucks. That's the thing. What I mean with timing, right? It's not only like when you apply. Well, I guess it kind of falls under it, but like if you can get into a studio that has the ability, the ability to become successful in the future, and you joined them at the time before everyone else joined, that is a big, big plus. That's what I did with Ubisoft, right? Like I joined like Ubisoft Berlin before the studio was even opened yet. So I was one of the like, I don't know, like first 30 or 20 or something like that. And then it kind of grew to like over 100 people at a certain point, I think. But that meant that because I had to do like so many jobs in the beginning, and I got in contact with so many people, that also like boosted me in like the perception of the company too, right? So that was like very valuable from a career perspective. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to find those things. Yeah. As someone whose 3D art became my profession, sometimes giving up is not an option, unfortunately. Well, God, yeah. I agree with that statement. I do agree with that statement. If it gets really bad, then we might. Oh God, I don't think we. I don't want to say. I don't want to say like. I don't want to say like doom speak here, right? Like games are not going anywhere. Games are not going anywhere. I'm not even gonna go there. I don't care about the payment. I just want to be in the industry, which is also not great. Because you should care about your payment. Because otherwise, yeah, you're going to be working 8 hours a day and not being able to feed yourself, right? That's also a scary thought, in my opinion. I think that indie studios will start popping up with jobs from now former vet devs. So yeah, that is interesting, but you have to think about like what's going to happen in terms of their team composition, right? So in the beginning, if a company like that starts up, they're not looking for juniors. They do not want juniors on their team. They want people with experience because they are startups and they have certain expectations and they have high quality bars, right? So there's a ramp up period. So that means that if that team is really successful and they get a bunch of funding that comes in, then they have the space to expand and potentially hire junior people, right? If that investment doesn't happen, or if there's no investment because the investment is dried up, then that also means that they're never in a position where they can hire juniors, right? And if you look at the current state of the industry, it seems like a lot of the pressure is just coming from the investment money just not being there, right? That's where a lot of the issues currently stem from. So while I do believe in this in the long term too, right? Like indie studios, with former vets taking like control back of like the creative part of the process and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean that it's gonna be easy. But I mean, making games, like doing this job, like and running your own business is not easy. It depends. If it's contract work, then it's harder to stay on. Again, with the contract work, it most of the time comes with the same application of timeline, right? Like if you get a contract in the beginning and you become a viable member of the team because you just have to wear many hats, the likeliness of you getting extended or getting a permanent role is higher because you are that person that is the bottleneck or the person that knows it all. So timing is a big one. Whole lot of hard-hitting discussions tonight, huh? Yeah, I love. So here's the thing that I wanna let you all know, right? Like when it comes to this stuff, I'm an opportunist, and I'm also looking at the industry and seeing where the opportunities are and seeing what really excites me. So while like AAA is kind of getting its ass handed to itself right now, right? There is going to be another industry that's going to be blossoming from it. And I truly believe in that. Do you think GTA 6 will reignite the industry and we will see more opportunities? No. I don't think so, because so what needs to happen to reignite opportunities, right? To like a sizable scale is that investment becomes interesting when it comes to the rate of return, right? So people that invested in Rockstar they're going to be really happy, right, with GTA 6 coming out. But that is already calculated into the price of Rockstar at this point. So who knows, right? The reason why we saw such a massive influx of money coming into the space was because of COVID, right? And the COVID what the COVID pandemic did is that it put people inside, which meant that they were going to be spending way more time playing games, right? And that's where you see like a lot of that investment capital coming into the space again, because they were like, ooh, a lot of people are going to be playing games. So that means that a lot of the spending and a lot of that stuff is going to go up. So I'm going to invest in games, right? That's why also now the current conversation is about like AI, right? Because it's not necessarily like the programs that we are using now, they're all like filled with AI to a certain degree. But it's more about that the money went from games to AI. That was the big issue, right? Like all the investment funds basically just looked at like the next market that was really interesting to invest in. So if your focus is financial stability, is going into the industry a bad bet right now? I don't think so. Like if you were to get a job in there, like here's the thing though, like I've always believed in diversification, right? So even when I had a full-time job, I was always doing stuff on the side. I'm always working on Beyond Extend. I was doing stuff before Beyond Extend. I was selling my own asset packages, all that kind of stuff. That was a big thing that I always had in my life, that I have, no matter what happens in this industry, I'm gonna be good. Are you gonna make the most money in this industry? No. But do you want to work on like banking software as a programmer, or do you want to work as an artist in games, right? And work on like really interesting projects where you can like put your creative time into it. So there's like, it's like pros and cons there. But when you just look at like the amount of money that you get, honestly, in the beginning it was a struggle. It was on the struggle bus, right? So my first job, I got paid like 19,000 a year, which is not great. I was living in an expensive city as well. But in more recent years, I'm actually really comfortable with my income. Unfortunately, my partner hasn't had a job for a while now. She's trying to get into the industry. She's doing a really good job, but obviously she's in the same position as most of you are, just like trying to get in, but it's just not working. And I'm very, very happy that just with my income as like my main income, I can support us both. If that is an indication. Yep, 19,000 in Cambridge. That is right. It was, I don't know how we survived. I remember that I had to save up money to like get a sandwich a month. And for the rest of it, I was just like pre-packaging meals and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. It is an interesting conversation, and I think we're seeing, like, it's not like we're not seeing success in the space, right? I think just because like AAA gets all the highlights, that's where a lot of people focus. But I just think that the AAA model by itself like doesn't really work anymore. So that's why we're also seeing all this stuff happening too. B is probably the best community out there, so much to help you improve. Very grateful. Hey, thanks for being a part of it, Round One. Appreciate it. You had another question though, Hudson. The ultimate test to see if you enjoy your job, would you still do it even if you had all the money in the world? My job, working in AAA? No. Like, I would be making my own games. Having creative control? Isn't that why we all do personal projects? Come on. Schedule 1 was made by one guy, and now it's made 126 mil. Yeah, you gotta be careful with focusing on the unicorns too. You know, we have to temper that expectation as well. But that doesn't mean that you can't make a living, right? There were a couple of people that I went to school with actually that made their own games. You probably haven't really heard about them, but they're doing okay. You know, they're not making all the money in the world, but they can comfortably make like their next game. Maybe one last question from Zoe, and then we're gonna switch it over to some feedback. But yeah, thanks all so much for like all the questions. I know that there's always like heavy topics in the beginning, but again, I am not a pessimist. I'm like actually an optimist about the future. That's also why I invest so much time, like talking to all of you and like trying to help you, right? Because I do believe that there's a future, but we also need to be aware that the future is constantly changing too, and we need to be able to adapt to it. So Zoe's asking for asset packages. What do you need? Is it literally just to create an asset pack, or do you have to do more? No, for like the bare bones, you can just create like a collection of assets and then just like put it on a marketplace. Yeah, I mean, you have to go through a process, right? Like honestly, like Unreal Engine is really good with this. Like you can submit your package, and they give you like a bunch of feedback points on what you need to adjust. The first time is going to be horrendous, right? Because there's going to be lots of issues. You're going to have to rename and do a bunch of work. Second time that you do it, it's going to be way better. I had to do the same thing. I ran into that wall, that brick wall myself first as well. But that's how we learn, right? One thing that I'll say is if you wanna get any sort of success out of an asset pack, obviously the quality needs to be there, right? It needs to look good. But what is more important is that you have to think about what the end user wants. It's not about what you want. It's about what someone else wants to do with it, right? So if you're making something, try to make it modular, try to make it flexible, try to make it like more more flexible to like the user's needs, right? Because that's what people are looking for. Try to put yourself into like the mindset of okay, if I'm building my own game, would I buy my own pack? If no, what is missing from it? If yes, how can I improve that? Very interesting. I'm going to look into this. Yes. Best of luck. And then Fernando, if you had the money, would you open your own game studio? Well, here's the thing. I don't think I would definitely want to try it. But like making your own game studio doesn't really cost money. Right? That's the weird thing about it. It just costs like a whole bunch of time. Like the thing that you can do is like you can work a full-time job or a part-time job, whatever you need to like support yourself, and then just like run a game studio on the side, right? Sure, is it gonna take a long time? Yeah, but that's why you make small games, right? Don't make your first game an MMORPG and you're gonna be in a good position, I think. But if I had the money, what I would love to do is I would love to run a small company with people that I really enjoy working with on a game that we all are really passionate about, right? And I'm literally talking about a group of like 5 to 10 people, ideally in person, because I just love the vibes of coming in, working with like a bunch of people that I love to be around and working on the same thing. So yeah, but I don't have an ambition to become like the next AAA thing or like the next AA thing or whatever. It is yeah. Oh yeah, Astroneer. Yep. I remember buying that. Like Clair Obscure. Yeah, even with Clair Obscure, I feel like their game already was like outside of the ambition that I have for it. Like I have no interest in like trying to manage outsource and working with like external talent and all that kind of stuff. I just want to do like I just want to do like a small thing with like people that I work with. Paul Papera. Rest in peace. Just cool sci-fi designs. Oh my god. That's the idea I have for a game. RPG real-time combat play. Yeah, I think when you start your own company, or like when you want to make your own game, right? The way that I would do it is just like make like a bunch of small prototypes. Just see it as like a game jam that you're doing by yourself or maybe with a friend. Just have fun with it, see what comes out of it, and then pick the best thing and then go with that, right? Makes the most sense. All right, let's switch it on over. Enough yapping. We are gonna look into some feedback. So good. People are catching on. Burak is first, Slate second, then Lily, then Seru, then Zoe, then Leia, and then Mike. Cool, awesome. Great stuff, people. I didn't even have to ask for it. That's awesome. So let's go with Burak. Go. Let me grab Discord as well. Where is Discord? Boom. Burak was prepared. Yeah, Burak was on the trigger with that one. That was crazy. Let's have a look. Work in progress. It was lighting fast. I know. Questions. My focal point. Okay, let's have a look at the focal point. It's already way better. It's already way better. You know, like I added here, definitely improved. Definitely improved. Turn down the music a tiny bit. It's blasting in my eardrums. Trace. Okay. Almost 12 here. I might miss it. We might put you up in the queue then, if that's the case. I don't want you to miss it. Cool. So first of all, focal point. Looking way better than it did before. Oh, I kinda cheated. Hold on. Let me do this. It was a spoiler. So focal point definitely way better than it was before. We definitely have like the most intense point is definitely happening here, right? Which is interesting. We're getting there. I think we can still exacerbate like or like emphasize, put like a bit more emphasis on it, because it's also the intensity of the colors and the saturation of the colors that is also still dragging us a little bit all over the place, right? So what that could look like, I don't know if we did this before, but if we go and we did this to like black and white, right? And we drag this up here, we can get a real good sense of the values. And we can see that the values are still pretty much like a bit all over the place. Right? It's not as focused as we kind of want it to be. Let me actually do a quick test. I'll be curious. Yeah, okay. Because we still have a lot of contrast in certain areas, right? That is still happening, but we're definitely making improvements. So awesome stuff here. Let's put this. Hello? Can I put that here? Thank you. Cool. Stefan can take my place. I'm here for the long run. Oh, that's awesome. Looking really good, Burak. Yes. So cool. We talked about the focal point. We're definitely making some improvements. What is still happening is that we have a lot of contrast in general happening here, right? It's just the intensity of the colors also plays into it as well, right? So that is something that we also have to manage because that is pulling a lot of our attention right here. I do like the water shader and the way that it's looking, right? As like a visual, if we were standing alone, I like how vibrant it is. It's just in this sense that we want to draw the attention to the focal point. It's not really helping us support that, right? So it's not that the visuals necessarily look bad. It's just that they don't do a job of supporting the main focal point. There's a couple of other things. I added a little squiggly line here. Because what we can also think about is our composition, right? So we have like a beautiful circular thing happening already. If you really want to emphasize the composition, we kind of want to have it in like the middle of the swoosh here, right? So that we can make it like symmetrical. And then what we could potentially do is if I do like an impression here, and then we have like the statue as a block here. What currently is happening is we have like a little platform happening on the side here. However, it would potentially be more interesting to have like these stone steps that you have here and move them into the space that is easier for our path or like our eyes to follow, right? Because this is like the most natural path to like the center. So we can emphasize that path. That is already going to help a little bit as well. Plus also this is more front facing so that if we want to add something here, or I don't know, like we could make like a plaque that says something, right? We can emphasize that as well. And then rotate like the statue in the same direction as well. So right, we would sort of move this here to be in the center of the scene. And then I think what I also want to do is see if we can do something with like the pools of water here that can again like help us like emphasize our focal point, right? So let's see. Maybe we'll have like a cut in here. And then have like a couple of these like steps again. And then have the steps over here as well. And then we're kind of creating, again, we're trying to create like a line that takes you from like the edge towards the center again, right? Maybe if you had a broken pillar inside the water pointing towards the focal point of the statue, that could be a good idea, but I think it kind of goes anti like the pristine nature of this place, right? If we're working with ruins, I think that would be an awesome suggestion. But it's more in terms of like the thematic, it could potentially break it. But honestly, that's just my opinion, right? So if Burak says like, oh my god, that would be an awesome thing to do, that would be great. Because it's not necessarily that it's a bad tool to use, because the tools that you're referring to are good, right? It's just in terms of like thematic, it matches or. So we'll leave that to Burak to decide. Cool. Okay. Let's see. Is there anything that I missed from the chat? The lumen reflections is weird. I don't know why that green part shines. It might be because like, oh, do you have like some like fake lights here or something like that? It is literally just tweaking the scene and like seeing at all the different components, like trying to balance it out, right? Who knows? Who knows? Something to investigate. So yeah, basically what we're doing is we're coming in from like the side of the scene, and then we take you to like the center, right? So this is where we want you to look. So we're coming in from this side, and then we take you in. And then what that leaves us is we can be a little bit more freeform with the pillar placement. And then see what makes sense for the composition. And potentially even start pushing some of these pillars in so that we have a better defined foreground, middle ground, and then background, right? Also, if we want to put like emphasis on like the main focal point, another good tool is scale and proportions. I think we talked about this a couple of times, but now that we have like an actual really good looking statue, yeah, we can start playing around with it a bit more, right? Because something like this is going to look more imposing than the scale that you have it now, right? Especially because it breaks the silhouette here, right? If it stands out a little bit more, that could look cool. Why shouldn't the camera be on the statue? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean by that, because it is going to be on the statue, right? We're going to be looking straight at it. My eyes have nowhere to rest? Yes, and we'll talk about that in a second. Because that is a very good point. So, talking about like rest, this is basically what I try to do really quickly. Because we have a lot of intensity happening in the colors, right? And what I tried to do with this is I was like, okay, what if we try to reduce some of the colors, or maybe even can I just do like a quick vignette in here? Close your eyes. Guess an inner shadow? Probably gonna have to set that to like... Ooh, I can't go bigger. Ooh. Like, just move it here to the statue up close, and we will see all the elements they worked on. Well, no, like, what we want to do is, like, we want to have the main shot, right? Because this is supposed to show, like, the scene. And then, once we have, like, our additional shots, then we can move in closer to have, like, those nice, like, highlights, right? Or, like, nice focal points. Or, like, detail shots. Sorry, couldn't think of the wording there. But what I did here is I just tried playing around with, like, the colors, right? Because everything is also sort of at the same saturation as well. So what I try to do is I try to include only the saturation in the places that it matters. So what matters to us is like the central pool and the statue. That's where we want to have our saturation. The rest of it doesn't really matter to us as much, right? So we can use that saturation or color intensity to help us accentuate like whatever's in the center of the scene. So yeah, focal point. So we talked about scale, we talked about saturation of the colors. And then also like leading lines, right? So like the steps and like how to curve like the pathway towards the central focal point. We can do that with like leading lines. And then obviously we have like this little paint over here as well, which is focusing on layering specifically. So that we have the foreground pillars, we have the central pedestal, and then we have like the moon in the background, right? So like 3 layers there. Cool. I also want to show the gigantic moon in the background. That moon is not going to go anywhere. Like, trust me on that. Like, I do like that element. So yeah, I don't want to lose that at all. But like what I'm thinking is that if you put like, what if we put like a pillar here, right? Like in the foreground, and then like a pillar here, if we're going to make it like really, really gross. And then have it go in like the water here or something like that. Because what that does is like we're also constricting like our camera so that we focus more in the middle as well. And that's also going to help too. It's something to play around with for sure. Because yeah, like Stranger said, there's no area of rest, and I think this would be the way that I would solve that. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. There's some cool stuff to work on, but yeah, great job. It's just like the art fundamentals, right? Like we're gonna keep hammering on those. We're gonna gradually improve upon them because I still have like a bunch of ideas, but yeah. I have a wide view on my whip chat. The structure is much more visible. That's cool. A wide shot. Oh, I didn't see that though. That's the one that I use here though. Interesting. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing your word, Burak. Great stuff. Great little update. Oh, you just posted it now? Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. Great little update. Best of luck. Yeah, looking forward to next week. Next week. Cool. And then maybe let's see, who was actually next? So Slate was next. I hope that Slate doesn't mind that we jump over to Stefan really quickly. We're just gonna make some last minute adjustments. So let's switch over to Stefan. Let's see. Stefan is working on the perfect letter. And then 2 questions for Wednesday. I've already received mixed feedback from people that both the full picture or not the full picture in the picture frames is looking good. But personally, I'm leaning towards the not full one. What do you think? So here's the thing, right? Like it is it kind of comes down to what you want the intention to be, because you can have a person read into it, right? So let's say the full picture, well, let's say we're just going to do like a breakdown here, right? So the full picture means they took great care. This might also translate to like that they really show a lot of love for them too, right? Because they took their care, finding like a nice fitting picture frame and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the opposite is going to happen, where like, oh, maybe this was like the picture frame. Like you can kind of hint at like very, very subtle stuff, right? Where it is like, ooh, there was a picture of like their previous wife in this or whatever, right? But there's something weird going on. There's something like slightly unsettling. There's some slightly unsettling or like weird stuff going on, because it is, the reason why I say so is because this picture frame looks really nice and expensive, right? If you think about it in that way, like you're not going to use like this type of picture frame on anyone, right? So if you buy an expensive frame like this for a picture that doesn't fit in it, like that will be weird, first of all. So that's probably didn't happen. So that's why I'm leaning more towards like, maybe it was a picture frame of someone else. Now you get to choose, right? There's no good or bad. It just depends on your intention of what you want to hit with storytelling here. Because both of them could be interesting in their own way. I really wanted to not make a wooden basic frame. It had to be a fancy frame, but also the color scheme wise, the material to draw the eye. Yeah, but that is almost like it's good that you think about that, right? But to me, the story is what is actually the more interesting approach here. Like, what are you actually telling about the story about like not having the picture frame fully filled out compared to partially filled out, right? Because we're not really thinking about like what the frame is necessarily. I think the choice of the frame is solid. I don't really have anything to say. It's more about like what that frame is saying about the importance of the person that is framed in it, if that makes sense. Because if this is just like, I don't know, let's say it's your niece, right? Like you're just gonna buy like, okay, you love your niece, but you don't love them as much as you love your wife or your daughter, right? So that's also a way of like subtly hinting at like the difference there. So yeah, so I'll leave that up to you. I know maybe it sounds like a cop-out answer, but I feel like this choice maybe comes more out of like your intent rather than if it looks good or bad. It's just, to me, the only thing that is maybe interesting is that if it's not scaled to the correct proportions, it is weird, right? But that weirdness can add to the scene as well. Might have been the best frame in the store and bought it because it looks even through. It doesn't fit. Yeah, could be. But that's the interesting thing, right? Like everyone kind of, when it comes to this granularity, you can kind of leave it mysterious, and then people can make up their own story. Because if you leave this to like a bunch of people, you only have the frame, and like the picture doesn't match the frame, a bunch of people are gonna come up with their own opinions on what's happened, right? And sometimes you want that, but sometimes you don't. So, yeah. It's down to the intent. So question number 2. I will translate the writer's character by... Oh yeah, I see. So we're translating like the writer's character by scattering folded paper onto the right side of the typewriter so that it shows his passion for the letter. Besides this, I thought that I should also make a phone hang from the table towards the floor to create a mysterious drama to impose an emergency. I honestly don't think that you need like the hanging phone. It feels like a little bit too dramatic. I feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff happening with like a bunch of like folded or crumpled up paper next to the typewriter, just showcasing that he's trying to write the perfect letter, but it's just not working, right? Half feeling the phone part, too much going on. Yeah, I think so too. It also feels, I don't know. It also feels like it's like an additional thing where I feel like the more powerful visual is just like the crumpled paper and all the failed letters and all that kind of stuff, right? Where you can do some really cool stuff where you can show like crumpled paper, but it still has like some of the writing visible, so you can see them like scratched out and like getting frustrated by it. Yeah. Because yeah, that would be cool. So we have like the typewriter here, and there's going to be like a stack of paper like next to it, and then you have like all the freaking crumpled bits of paper next to it, right? I think that's going to be cool to see. Also some paper on the ground. Yeah, you're probably going to have some like scattered pieces, right? The main thing that could be interesting, or the one addition that could potentially be like quite nice, is maybe having like a little desk lamp. Not sure where, but like just having like one of those like old school like Tiffany lamps. You know, they had like the classical green shades on them. It could be interesting. Mainly because like I see that like a light has been added here, so there's probably like a light up here somewhere. But maybe we can cozy it up by making the light a bit more focused around like a typewriter. So that could be interesting, making it a bit more cozy, kind of watching that we don't like obscure like the photo and all that kind of stuff. But I think definitely making it more contrasty could work. So that we get like a little bit more focus on just... I mean, contrast by itself is not going to work on this one. Because you, again, it maybe sounds a bit over the top sometimes when I talk about this stuff, but think about the emotional impact that has, right? Like if you have like a well-lit room or like a dimly lit room that is more focused on like the act of writing itself, it helps us in two ways, right? It helps us focus on the things that actually matter on the desk, but it also shows like the sort of like isolation and the dedication in like a very subtle manner, because it's focusing us and that person just on like this one act of writing this letter, right? So it has like a deeper connection there as well. I'm planning to add a plant in the corner in between the light and the picture, like on the wooden frame. It will add green contrast and may go further with the other greens in the scene. In the light in between the content. Yeah, give it a try. Give it a try. But yeah, the plant seems to be more optional, right? Where I kind of like how somber it is, and if we then have like this green shade going on, I think that's also like, because we're basically doing the same thing, right? You wanted to add like a flower, not a flower, but like a plant in the corner. We're both achieving the same thing by adding like a green color contrast that is more interesting, makes the scene more interesting. But the thing that I try to do, at least, is I try to add something that could also tie into the story again, right? Or like help us in another way rather than just being like a nice asset. Whereas the plant could be nice, but it would just be like an asset in the corner, if that makes sense. But again, it's your work, right? It's up to you. But yeah, definitely contrasting the lighting just a little bit so that we focus more on the desk, that we get more like a dim view of the room. And then and then supporting this light with a mesh, because we have like the light coming from up front. So maybe that could be something additional that we can add to the scene. Yes. Cool. Thank you so much, Stefan, for sharing your work. This is looking really nice, by the way. I know that I usually jump into like these things straight away, but it's looking really nice so far. Execution on the assets looks really nice. So now it just comes down to like really executing on that typewriter and just, I feel like making the scene more dimly lit, and yeah, focusing on the center is gonna be helpful. It looks lovely. Yes, it does. A good tip. I mean, we just did the same thing with Burak's work like very quickly as well. But a good thing to try always is just comparing the two and then seeing if you can turn one to like black and white and see how contrasty the scene is. And I think that we can actually do a lot with the contrast in this scene. Because I'm almost thinking about it in a way where, let's see. Oop. Burn. We are going to go 100%. We're going to go for midtones. This is not going to look too great in the beginning, but it's more to show an indication rather than anything else. I think keep like the natural light that is coming from like this light, but just increasing the contrast a little bit would be really helpful. And then we can like crank things up here again. Right, so what I'm trying to do is with these value adjustments, I'm just basically trying to do more of this. And this is gonna be part of like, you can do it with the lighting already, and then just having like a slight vignette as like a post-processing effect on the whole thing. That's gonna be helpful. yeah, just add a little bit of spice to it. Cool, Stefan. Thank you so much for sharing your work. This looks awesome. Looking forward to seeing that next week. It's a bit of a cliche piece, but I really need something in my portfolio in terms of assets and storytelling. I think this is a great choice. Something from this size, focusing on the storytelling by, yeah, adding a lot of like assets that matter to it. It'd be really nice, man. Really nice. Cool. Get a stack of envelopes. Get some lettering in there. It's gonna be cool, man. It's gonna be cool. Right. Thanks, Stefan. Let's move on to Slate now. Oh, Slate is already on the freaking screen. Awesome. Right, Slate. You had 2 questions, right? As everyone does, because that is a requirement. So the first one was about composition. I do like the composition that's happening here already. So I think that there's some really cool stuff here because we got like foreground, middle ground, background, right? That sort of like separation is always gonna work. The image with the staircase is not the updated version. I think it's fine. Let me see. What was the latest one? Oh, but I mean, yeah, it was the latest one when I grabbed it. Because I have something in the background that grabs like all the images at 7. So anything added after that is not going to be the latest one. So layering works really well. Like I said here, nice layering, really good job. Now, when it comes to these shots, we need to find a way to add that layering in it again, right? Same thing here as well. Just adding something in the foreground. It can be anything, right? Like you can have like a couple of fences here. You can maybe have like a tree in the foreground here. You know, like just something that helps us like get like a little bit of extra like layering in the scene. And then we can potentially apply like some of the same thinking that you did here with the staircase. But just being like, okay, we're just gonna have like a staircase going down here. We can see the beginning of the staircase. And that gives us like an idea of, okay, I'm supposed to go down here. Right, and then that connects up here. And then maybe we can do like a little bit of finessing with the camera to show like a little bit more, like kind of just like skew it up and down. And then continue working on it that way. But that's basically the way that I always set up my scenes. I always want something like in the foreground, midground, and then background. Right, that layering is always going to be interesting. Yeah, camera shots. I think honestly, like this one is good. This one is good. I like this one. This one has potential. Obviously, this is more to showcase the asset. This one is really flat. Just in terms of like we just have like one big thing to look at because like we can't really see that much of the background. But I'd be curious how you can make this look good because I also have the feeling that a lot of the surfaces here are going to be relatively simple. Which means that we then have to compensate by making those textures look really good and having a bunch of like decals and smaller details that are going to make it stand out, right? Whereas with these ones, we're focusing more on the big rather than all the small details. Where in a screenshot like this is going to be focused on material work. And like details, basically. Because there's not too much going on in terms of geometry here, right? And that can be like, that can be conscious from your side, right? Where you know that you're good at X, so you're gonna just double down on like focusing on the big scope. Or let's say you do the opposite and you're like really good at like making really nice looking materials, then you focus on stuff like, then you focus on compositions that can support that better, right? So it's like you gotta support your strengths and what you want to do through your camera composition. Which shot do you think should be the progress GIF? Which shot is going to be your main shot? That is probably going to be like the most likely progress GIF. This one is by far my favorite, just because like all the things work already, right? Like all the individual aspects, they work already. So if I were to choose one, this is probably going to be the most interesting one. I thought of the building one, but I'm leaning towards the staircase one. So it depends, right? Like if you want to focus on, again, materials and details, if that is a thing that you are comfortable with, that you're going to be executing on like a high standard, this could be a good one as well. It just depends on what the focus is for this project, right? If we're focusing more on the bigger stuff, then probably A is going to be better than B. So that's for you to decide, because both of them can work. And you know, let's just do both until you figure out the answer to that question, right? Because sometimes I also don't know the answer to that question. Maybe like a shot really grows on me and that becomes the main shot. So what you do is you just take like daily screenshots of like, or like weekly screenshots, depending on how much you work on it. Take regular screenshots of all your cameras and you're good, right? Then at the end, you can still go back into it and make like one of them your progress shot. Cool. For question number 2, do you think I should improve the models by reworking the modeling or texturing? Are you asking about or modeling or texturing? Because I feel that this is super basic at the moment. I would honestly be curious to know what the reference for this is. That would be my first question. Of course, well, hold on. There was a Miro board linked. Let's have a look there. Okay, so building concepts. We're gonna be pretty rude and pretty quick here. Anything that's in game doesn't count. I want to see real buildings. Because the issue is, if you're doing buildings that are already in games, what is going to happen is that they're already going to be distilled from someone else's view on what was needed for that game. That means that you're not necessarily going to be like making the building in like the most authentic way, right? So that would be, you can still use like these for to get like a good idea on how to do the texturing or how to do the modeling, right? But start with the real source first, and then work your way down. Because for example, like this stuff is okay, but I'm expecting to see like, okay, how does all of this connect together, right? I want to see that. No, that one is just a concept. Oh, the building's concept? Yeah, but still, right? Like in general, what I'm really missing is just like really in-depth yeah, the details in purif. Okay, that's good. But then I am curious to see what this looks like, because this feels like it's really generic. It doesn't feel like it necessarily exists in this way. Plus also sometimes it is worth thinking about picking an asset that looks like it could exist in real life. Because sometimes some stuff is like, not that this is like so out there that it's unbelievable, but some stuff out there exists, but if you then put it in front of people, they don't recognize it as it exists. So that's also something to be aware of that like indication that's happening there. But also, I think you mentioned that you are in the final stages of your block out, right? So I also have no idea how much further you're gonna keep pushing this. But yeah, it would be something to have a look at, like how this is constructed, right? So how it is constructed, get like a bunch of detail shots on how the weathering and surfacing works, right? And if this is going to be so close to the camera, try to do more with the silhouette as well. Because let's say this is like made out of like reinforced concrete or something like that, right? Having like one of these chunks out, and you kind of see like some of the rebar kind of sticking through, because like some, I don't know, some worker here like tried to get like his quad through here and he crashed into the pillar, you know? Like that stuff could be cool to show off then. And then you have like a couple little pieces like still falling on the ground and stuff. Stuff like that could be cool. Yeah, but definitely there's one thing that I can say. A ton of references. Like, yeah, a metric ton. Like, I feel like if you're either you do it through your working when you have like any question or you don't know how to do something, like that's when you go directly to the references. But ideally, you should have like a thorough understanding of everything that you're gonna do in your project already. And then only go back to the references like whenever you feel like, ooh, I don't know what that looks like. Okay, let me go back to them. Cool. Right. Last thing, kind of a random one. If we're gonna do this scene, it could be, if we're gonna take this camera, it could be interesting to rotate this around so that the dish is kind of just like facing us, right? This looks like an egg, but yeah. Looks like an egg, but yeah, the egg dish needs to be facing us. Because that's going to help with the composition, right? Because right now it's kind of pointing us out, whereas like I kind of want to keep people in the comp. The bridge was a tough one. It looks basic even in real life. So in general, whenever something is like really basic, then it becomes more important to actually really nail the first of all the materials, but then also like look for these like small opportunities to make it more interesting, right? So for example, where you have like these individual slabs, have those slabs like misaligned. I'm exaggerating it here, right? Like really play around with like the misalignment of them and like break up the edges. Because that is actually, I don't think I've ever talked about it in this way, but that is also our job as like environment artists, right? Is that sometimes we need to make the mundane look really interesting. Well, gotta be careful with that because it can't be interesting enough that it takes all the attention away from like a main focal point, right? If this was a standalone thing, I still want to be like kind of impressed with it, right? That you thought of those like smaller things. Be really cool. Yeah, you're paying attention to like the edge damage. You have some like grime and dirt going on. Like having the grime and dirt like collected around collecting around the pillar too. It's stuff like that that's really gonna make a difference on like more basic looking assets, right? The more simple the geometry, the more heavy the lifting becomes from the textures. Cool. But yeah. Great stuff, Slate. Like I said before, I think the composition on the top left one looking really solid. That's gonna be freaking cool to look at. Yeah. Great stuff, man. thank you for sharing your work. Looking forward to seeing it in the next week as well. Yeah, thank you for sharing. No, thank you for posting. Appreciate it. Next up is Lily. We got Lily here. A couple of quick questions, I think, for this one. So it was one question about the rocks on the right side, so which I'm assuming is going to be this ledge. Would it be better to build big blocky rocks or place them side by side? Oh, basically unique versus modular, right? That's what we're asking. I'm always a fan of modularity because if I then need that rock somewhere else, I can just like steal it, rotate it around, and I have like another rock to like play around with, right? If we're just focusing on this shoreline, you can honestly get away with something like 1 to 3 rocks, and that is all you need for something like this. If I were to do this myself, I would make 1 rock, try to make it somewhat like shaped in like a modular way. That means that like every side has like a different thing going on. Potentially even do it with 1, but it would be nice to have more, right? So that you can see the variation. That's why I'm saying like 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because even if you look at this, right, like you can kind of build like a couple of modules where like this is one module and then this is like another module and then this is like another module. And then if you have like those 3 variations, then you can just like take this one, put that here, then take another one, put that here, and like recompile it using different shapes, like different rotations and stuff. So yeah. The second question is about this this silhouette, I think, right? So what would be the best way to tackle the mountain with a rock inside? Make it unique, building it up with different pieces and tileable textures, or any other way? So if we're focusing on your different options here, right? Unique is going to be way too big. So because we're literally talking about like a surface that is going to be, let's say this is like person height, right? Let's assume 2 meters to make it easy. Yeah, this thing is freaking huge. If we get close to it and we want to make it game ready, right? We don't have like the texture space to God, what is my redo? Where's my redo? Oh, whatever. I deleted it. Lost my train of thought. So when it comes to this big of a surface, we need to find another way, right? You mentioned tidables. Tidables can definitely work. Tidables potentially in combination with like adding a couple like, again, potentially modular pieces to add like onto the lip could be interesting. It is worth giving it a try, just having like the whole thing as like a unique mesh and then slapping a tidable on it to see how far you get. Because maybe with 2 tidables, let's say you have like your main tidable, which is just like the main surface, and then you have like a more detailed tidable around the edges, you can also get away with that. But yeah, unique is too big. Pixels in the city won't work. So the tidables can work. And then if the tidables doesn't look too good, you could always experiment with like having like a couple of like modular meshes, slotting them in there somehow, and then adding additional geometry detail where it's needed, right? So for example, that's why I highlighted this lip here, because that might be nice to highlight with like a couple of modular meshes. We don't need to care about like anything that's happening behind this guy, because we're not going to see it anyway. Cool. I think that was nice and quick. Yeah, that would be my recommendation. Yeah, I'm not like the way that I usually go about this, right, is there's usually so many different ways of like solving like anything in game dev. What I would try is like the quickest possible thing, right? So that's why I'm leaning towards like just make a huge mesh, like quickly sculpt it or whatever, so that you get like a nice shape. But you don't want to do like high poly, low poly baking. You just want to get like the sculpt as like a bake. Get that into the engine. Try it with tidables. Do like vertex painting on it really quickly to see if that is enough. And if it's not enough, you make a couple of additional pieces. If it is enough, you can tweak the geometry that's there. And that's usually how I go about things. Whenever I have those questions, sometimes you just have to do the thing that you think makes the most sense and then iterate on top of it. Because both of them could work. So yeah, great stuff, Lily. I love the thing that you've chosen. Really cool little concept that you have going on. Gonna be cool to see like the vibrancy of the colors come to life as well. And of course, to see your own spin on it too. It'll be cool. So thank you, Lily. Thank you for sharing your work. Looking forward to seeing this come together. Very excited. Let's go. Okay, let's have a look. Who's next? We had Seru. Seru is doing a texture pass. Let's go. What can I help with here? What I'd like feedback about. Would you consider the new lighting pass better than the old one? You gotta go. It's midnight here. Thank you so much for being here, Burak. Appreciate it. Leia is saying it looks awesome. Yes, I agree. To compare the lighting passes, I mean, my genuine first thought was like, okay, I'm seeing a difference here, right? We're getting like a little bit more light on the buildings. We lost like a little bit of contrast. I don't really mind too much. I think honestly the difference is quite negligible. There is a difference, of course, but I think my thinking is more like, let's just skip the lighting for now. It's good enough. Get all the textures in, add more details to the geometry, and then do like a lighting pass like later down the line. Because what I can guarantee you is that we're gonna be doing textures on everything. All the materials are gonna come in, and then you're gonna have to like rebalance the lighting anyway, right? Because that's gonna have an effect on the whole look and feel of the thing. So it's a little bit of a weird recommendation, but like just keep the lighting as is for now. Or keep the lighting functional. Because it is close enough, but it's not worth bothering ourselves with at this point, right? It is functional, and then we can focus on the things that need to happen before, and then we can do another lighting pass. I know it's tempted. I know I do the same thing too. Oh my god, see me squishing this in. Yeah, sometimes it's good to just like leave it for a while, focus on all the other stuff, and then loop back around for the lighting in the end. To give my quick sense about like the improvements on it, from just quickly glancing at the concept and like a small thumbnail, what I think halfway in between. So like, I know it sounds like a cop-out answer, but I feel like we gave up too much contrast. Because what I do really like is that in the concept, like basically this stuff, for the most part, doesn't matter, right? And then you get like this light beam that just like highlights this building in like a very beautiful way. And right now, because we lost some of that contrast, that impact that this light beam is going to have is going to be lessened, right? So if we're doing some preparation for the future, probably starting from like a darker contrasty mood and then bringing the light back in is probably going to be an effective way to do it. All right, so second question. What do you think of the combination of brick and stone? Does it fit in this scene? Yes. Yeah, the only thing that I can really say about this is that when you have something like this happening, right? Then you're going to incur like a bunch of work because like this is going to be ornamental too, right? So then these bricks are basically going to be following like the curve of like the thing underneath it. And then the same is going to be happening here, right? Until you have like an ornament here that kind of transitions the whole thing back into like a wall again, right? Once you get like those like brick ornaments in, the combination of the two like can work like flawlessly. Because that's also going to help feel like the materials are more consistent. That's going to really make things stand out, right? But that's more details. But I think overall, like the combination of the two works really good. Or can definitely work. Yeah, it's for this kind of stuff, it's, I know I'm gonna sound like a broken horn, but references are gonna help you a lot here. There's a lot of great places. I mean, this is from like inspired by Belgium and like the Netherlands and stuff. A bunch of great places in for example, Ghent is a nice one. I think actually like some of these places. What could be another good place? I mean, this is probably going to be the one to look for. Amsterdam has a lot of these kind of houses where just like really tall, slim, like tall build-up houses next to the channels. I think these two go more into like the Gothic style. If you want, oh my god, there's basically every market, like there's a marketplace in like every town that has like these like old traditional buildings still surrounding them, so they're like good reference material too. But yeah, it looks really good. Really good. But yeah, you got a reference there as well from like a cathedral. Yeah, go for it. I mean, gonna be a quick one. Let's see, and then in the meantime, who was next in line? I'm trying to be very conscious of the time this time. Where's all the hands? There we go. So he's next. You can see that there's a lot of banners, signs, graffiti, etc. in the scene. Do you think it's fine to use the same names and words, or should I try to be original? Just use the same ones, honestly. It's not like this is gonna be like trademark. I mean, there's probably gonna be like some stuff trademarked in it, but it's fine. You're not making money out of this anyway, right? I think a lot of the stuff in the concept is gonna be like super generic. So I think you're fine. I think you're 100% gonna be fine with that. Yeah, exactly. Like the main concern there with any of those questions, like, oh, do I come up with my own brands or not, is if you are thinking about at a certain point like commercializing it, right? Which means Which means like, oh, if you want to sell it or if it's going to be used in a commercial product or something like that, then you have to be worried about that. If you're just doing like personal work, it doesn't matter that much. Or like they're not really going to come after you necessarily. Cool. Okay. Next person in line, Zoe. Zoe and then Leia. Oh, I'm already looking at Zoe. Making a cool little backpack sculpt. My question is, if you see any issues with the fabric folds and the tension of the fabric. I'll be putting smaller details in the fabric, but I really want to get the bases right first. Anything that stands out. Cool. There's honestly nothing too much to add from my side. I think it's looking great so far. I added a couple of things here, like just literally two, where I saw. I know that you're still gonna add details, so maybe the second one is kind of like an obvious one that you still need to address. The only thing that I saw here is with the zipper installation. Like it always feels like it's like an additional layer on top of it, right? Where usually what happens, yeah, it kind of bulges out, right? So you have like normal fabric, and then you have like basically two protective layers, and then like the zipper in the middle, right? But that means that like the plastic on top of it kind of like always bulges out because it needs to protect the zipper underneath it from like water coming into it. And that's why these guys are always just like a little bit bulging out. But that could be good to reflect it because it's also going to be nice to have then the contradiction between like the fabric and then like that plastic material. It's going to help that stand out more. The second thing is it feels like this side pocket, even though it has like the same color, it feels like it's a different fabric because it seems to be more foldy. That is a word. So it feels like it's different because you can see that like the folds are like closer together compared to the rest of the fabric, right? So reflecting that could also be good because again, if you're then gonna add like the same material on it, which like is a purpose of like these backpacks, right? There's still a distinction between the two by just the intensity of the folds that are gonna happening there. But I think that's more like a detail pass anyway. But still, it's gonna be cool. I think those will be useful. Yeah. Leia saying, love the detailing. It's awesome. Yes. Going for a hyper realistic as it's a VFX prop. Ew, VFX? No. No, that's cool though. That is cool. Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. I'm doing a game project too, don't worry. Probably use 10 UDIMs for the backpack. God, UDIMs. So lucky. Just infinite texture space. Dang it. Cool. Yeah, thank you so much for showing this off, Zoe. This is looking really cool. Great looking sculpt already. Can't wait to see the details coming in on this. Like all those like tinier folds. It'll be so fun to see. So yeah, good stuff. Thank you so much, Zoe. Great model indeed. It is. It is. God, I keep losing track of like the hands. Oh yeah, Leia. Just brought you up. Leia and then Mike. Okay. I swear to God, I got like a brain of like a goldfish or something like that. I think my old age is setting in already, you know. I can't even remember like two names. Okay. I put on what's a good song here? Tumbleweeds. Try. Okay. Leia, I didn't make notes for you yet, so we're gonna be diving into this blind. Let's have a look. Oh my god, this takes me back. L1, L2, L3, and L4. Where are you going to school Are some of the people there from Ubisoft? Because I feel like that's like a very Ubisoft thing to do. We had to do that like on every project. Oh god. Yeah, for people that don't know, Leia explained it beautifully. So level 1 is simple shapes, level 2 is secondary detailing, level 3 tertiary details, and then L4 is final detail pass. Interesting. Yeah, so the way that we interpreted those levels was L1 is to keep it simple, block out, right? Just functional block out. Level 2 was detailed block out. Or like color box or something like that. So you have like color information coming into the mix. Level 3 was the final model, if I remember correctly. And then L4 was like the polished model. So you kind of had like two differences between like the assets and then the worlds themselves. So there was a different way of tackling them both. But it's interesting to see like the L1 to L4 thingy doing the rounds. Anyway, let's see. So for my question, what is something that I should focus on before I enter the L2 stage of my environment? Is there something crucial that I'm not giving enough attention to the level 1 stage? So if we're talking about like the next iteration of this environment, it's like I like that you have like a cool environment going on already. But what's the soul of the environment, right? Like what is going to be like the focus point for the story, this one? I know that from my read, like this is probably like an assignment or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So choices here are going to be limited, but if you can give, even in your own personal time, if you can infuse like a focus or a story into the mix, that is gonna help a lot. So yeah, think about that first. That would be the first thing that I would bring up. Like it could literally be like, hey, look, the focus is gonna be on the tower here, for example. So how are we gonna accentuate the tower? Or maybe there's like a market happening here. Market would be crazy in terms of like detailed or assets. I know you have like a bunch of cards, right? So okay, people are coming in with cards and they're leaving like a bunch of cards here. So there's like deliveries happening, and it's just something that can hint at like, oh, this is a place where like stuff happens, rather than just. It currently feels like it's a placeholder for stuff to happen in, and I kind of want to see that represented in like an L1 stage already, where we have something going on. Because you do have, you do have the cards, you do have the benches. Like you can do some stuff in terms of like set dressing to make it more interesting than it currently is. These guys as well. What the hell's happening here? Hanging barrels. Yeah. So you got some stuff there. Yeah. Try to think about like this space. It's like. What happens here? I think that you're also doing most of this in Houdini, right? Every mesh is made procedurally with Houdini. Okay, so if we're doing everything procedurally in Houdini, we have different options to our available, right? So yeah, let's take some proper note. Most interesting to support story, right? For option number 1. Thingy number 2 that I want to bring up. If you're, this kind of still goes into like the L1 category, right? If you're doing stuff in Houdini, break up silhouettes. You have the benefit of generating these buildings in Houdini. So what I kind of want to see is I want to see like a slanted roof. like a roof slant. Right, the stuff where you have like in medieval buildings, what you'll see is you'll have like these very like naturally shaped like roofs. And most of the time it's just focusing on the silhouettes, right? So this silhouette is also going to be important. Don't make it that crazy, but like breaking up the silhouette ever so slightly. Doing the same thing here, where you have like a little section on the side. And have like... it's basically what is happening is that you have... underneath it, you have like your structural beams, right? You have like your support structure, and that's going to be supported in a couple of places, and then it's going to be pushing down in the other places. And then from the side view, the same is going to happen with this curve as well. So that curve is also going to be pushed down too. And that is going to add a lot to something medieval like this, because it adds so much to the flavor, right? Nothing is straight. Cool. And you have the benefit, because you're generating these buildings in Houdini, that it's relatively easy for you to set something up that then can be reused. Whereas if you were doing this with a very traditional, in a very traditional way, let's say with a traditional modular kit, then you're gonna run into the issue of okay, how am I going to continue that sort of curve between like all the different meshes, and it's just a big clusterfuck. So you have a strength here that you can use to your advantage. Roofs and walls. Cool. Those are like the two biggest things for now that I would say to take into like L2, right? When you're doing like a refinement pass on it. And then I don't know what these modules are like currently. Well, just look, shouldn't I? Okay, so there's like one last thing that I can bring up. These are like the same modules, right? Or generated in the same way. A bit of variation between the two, so that if you use them next to each other, that let's see, more variation between door patterns. If you use them next to each other, that they feel like they're not used in the same way, right? So wherever you have like a recognizable pattern, potentially think about like how you break that up, or potentially even think about like how you add more of it, right? Sometimes adding more makes it like a deliberate pattern where it's like, oh, okay, that's done on purpose. We can live with that. Cool. Sorry, I just keep going on like little rants here and there. I swear we're gonna get to this next question. Different width, but they are the same. I can definitely add some randomization logic to the houses. Yeah. I love it, it's awesome. I'm such a nerd for like medieval stuff. God. Cool. What was the second question? Let's have a look here. Or was there a second question? You were basically also asking like if there's anything crucial that you can tackle now before it becomes more time consuming in L2, L3, L. I think honestly, most of the stuff that we talked about is going to be like the biggest thing that I want to see going forward. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to add here necessarily. I feel like we hit on like a couple of good things to take into account. And then I'm really curious where this is going to go like next week. just to see like all the little updates. So yeah, good stuff, Leia. It was lovely to see your work, and I think also welcome to the community as well. It's lovely to have you, because I just noticed that you're new here. So welcome. It's lovely to have you. And thank you so much for participating in Whip Wednesday as well. Good scene overall. Yeah. It has the bones of becoming a great scene. I like it. Cool. Thank you, Leia. And then I think it was Big Mike next. I only made like one addition here. Honestly, I love this. This shot is so good. I do love this shot a lot. Honestly, the only thing that I can think of is more polish than anything. It is just a couple of decals, right? I know I'm going off script here already, but just a couple of decals to make it feel like we literally just uncovered this, right? So just like, how are we gonna do this? Just some like sand stuff in these areas? And then potentially using like the same sort of sand like in like certain areas on the pillars. It is honestly more of sand or dirt. It's honestly more polish. But I think that's the only thing that I really want to see. And also, it's an effective tool to break up some of the reflection that we have going, right? Yeah, cool stuff. Okay, let me have a look at the questions here. Yeah, already great looking stuff, Mike. I focused on the cave one. I created a trim sheet and used the same shapes as the mosaic to add the details. That's awesome. That worked out great, honestly. I love the additions here. I also replaced some objects like the pillars, while others, they felt like more a part of the scene. It's out of place. I'm not sure if it would make sense to add more objects like figurines or things like that on the floor. I honestly don't think so. I would focus on I would honestly focus more on like how this has been left over the years. So what I mean by that is instead of keeping the ground relatively flat, I would have a lot of buildup of like sand again, right? Where you can have like some of the sand piling up in the crevices. I would really play around with like the natural, like nature almost taking over this place, right? Where you could even make it like, oh, let's see. You could almost make it like partially buried. Play around with that whole motif. Maybe this is a bit too far. This is honestly more up to you than me just having fun with the sketch, right? So you can add like sand piles so that it's buried, sand or dirt. So it's totally up to you how much, of course. I'll leave that up to you. Awesome presentation for the material as well. Yeah, I agree. It's so good. I also love these guys, right? They're like subtle enough, but they kind of add like a little bit of flavor to the scene. Yeah, just doing like some sand buildup. Doing some decals, like almost like just leading into like the whole archaeological vibe, right? Honestly, that's it. I don't really have anything else to say. Oh wait, there's one more thing. Sorry. If you're showcasing these tiles, oh. I want you to tone down ever so slightly the height on the missing tiles. Because it does feel like they're like really thick, like thicker than what I imagine Mosaic to look like. Or what my expectation for Mosaic is. Like it feels like the depth there goes really deep. So making that a little bit more subtle, that's the only thing that I can really add. And the rest of it is just having fun with the presentation, right? Like how you present this, like getting, I don't know, like it could be really interesting. Like, can we, I'm gonna ask a question here, right? So can we lean into the archaeology vibes? What I mean by that is like instead of having this as like your presentation for your material, what if like you have like a brush here, like a brush to clean off the dust. And then you use the same decals that we're going to create here to kind of like, you can still keep like somewhat the same lighting and the same patterns, but then I don't know, kind of leaning into like some like tools that people would use to like clean this stuff off. And maybe there's like a little toothbrush for like the finer details, you know, because someone's really taking their time. Like some of the tools that you see with like, yeah, with like archaeology sites where they literally just uncovered this and like really lean into that aspect. Depends on how much you want to do with that. I think it could be like a fun angle to take. But again, it's up to you, right? It's more, it would be cool to see the consistency between like the presentation. All right. Quick one, but thanks so much for sharing that bit, Mike. Freaking awesome work. I love the presentation. Like that presentation is ace. So that is awesome. I think we're going all over the place now. If I think so. Oh, Zeno was in there too. Did we oh no, V was next. V was next. Okay, so this is kind of gonna be like a different kind of project. Because we have to look at a video. So this is like the introduction of the project already. This is the one screenshot that we have. Already very ambitious looking. Let's have a look. How are we gonna do this? Hello, hello. Let's have a look. Where did it save? Oh, there we go. All right. I'll post screenshots next time. Awesome. So let's have a look. What was the questions in the meantime, right? Is it helping me establish a ground level art style, which is defined by the old gritty rusted surfaces? A question: which areas for lighting, materials, storytelling, props, composition would you prioritize to achieve a strong overall impression? It kind of looks like the bar, the one that we're seeing here, is the one that is like the most well, the furthest along in its production cycle, right? Because here's the issue with like a project like this. It is massive. And it is not necessarily about like how to do stuff. It's how to get through it mentally. It's almost like you're going at like a marathon pace, and this is gonna take like double or triple the amount of time that you originally expected it to be. Right? Because that is just like how projects work. So I think it's good to focus on like one area And if you then pick like the area that currently looks the most interesting, like we have like this shop here. I think the shop, what was it again? A ramen shop or a vending machine? Like a vending machine here as well, right? Yeah. So, I mean, just from like visual interest, I think the bar could be like the one to focus on here, right? And then if we can just focus on like a shot like this, maybe, where that is the only thing that we focus on for now. That could be pretty interesting. Just so that we can keep the scope a little bit more condensed as well, and that we can have like a focal point. Um, yeah, that is basically it. Let me see. Did that answer the question? Which areas, lighting, materials, storytelling, props, composition, would you prioritize to achieve the strongest overall impression? Um, yeah, I hope that answered your question. Because I mean, we're basically saying like, okay, just pick one area. I don't know if you were here last time. We talked about this like for quite a while, and it's something that I tend to bring up like um quite often. Is if you're doing a big scene and you're not sure about like the art style, or you're still like trying to discover that as well. What we really need is something that has all the components of the rest of the scene, and then we construct a benchmark around it. Which means that we're basically going to be taking all of the components here, and we're going to be finalizing them to the degree where we're really comfortable with that being the end result. And once we kind of have figured out like all the kinks and we answered all the questions, then we can apply our learnings on the rest of the project. So that would be one way of doing it. Obviously, with a scene like this, we can't really question. Like we can't really answer like all the questions that we have. Benchmark. Um, Here's another thing, Tom. Like there is a thing that is throwing like a wrench in my thought process, right? Is because a scene like this is not focused on a singular ramen shop, right? A scene like this is basically looking at the screenshot that we're looking at, and I'm telling you to focus on this, which doesn't really sound exciting, right? So we need to find a way to I feel like the best thing here is to honestly focus on the thing that you want to showcase, and you can only pick one. Whether it is like an individual smaller scene, or you want to focus on the bigger scene by itself. But that means that if we go for like the bigger, wider scope, then we have to let go of like all the smaller stuff that we potentially want to do. And if we do it the opposite way, then we're gonna lose like the grand picture of the scene so that we can focus on the small thing first. I don't have the answer there. The answer lies within what you want to focus on and what you feel like you gravitate towards the most, right? So have a think about that, and then think about like how you want to proceed. Because this is a scene that is gonna take a lot of time if you want to do it at like a degree where it is gonna be ready for your. It's gonna take a lot of time, right? So we need to come up with a proper plan on how we do this. Got it. Because I love the ambition. I really, really do. And this looks like an awesome scene. But we need to make sure that we can put a plan underneath that ambition and make sure that we set you up for success, right? So first step would be to think about like where you want to focus, bigger scope or smaller scope. think about which one you prefer. And then if it's bigger scope, we're going to focus on the big stuff. And we're going to forget about the small stuff. Or we're going to forget about the ramen shop and all that kind of stuff. We're going to sort of focus on the big stuff. And if it's the opposite, then we're going to focus only on the ramen shop first. And then potentially come back to the opposite, right? So yeah, let's see. So first thing to do is big versus small focus, right? And then the second thing to do would be like, okay, just estimate like how long this is going to take you, right? Have like a quick little timeline in your head, see how long it takes you. Just to make sure that you're like, okay, are we ready for this, right? Like if you go through all the paces, you plan everything out that you want to do, like how long is it going to take you? And then number 3 would be, like we said here, like pick the thing from number 1 that you want to do and build like the benchmark that is going to help you solve most of the questions, like most of the questions that you have. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Like I said, like freaking ambitious. I mean, I'm a sucker for Cyberpunk as well. It's probably my favorite game in the last 10 years. It's so good. So seeing this like gets me all riled up. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome to see coming together. I mean, you even got the username, you know, V. Come on, I know where that's coming from. Okay, cool. But thank you, V. Best of luck with the project. And then you know where to find me. Next week, if you have more questions, feel free to add them in your little thread. Theme and a mood? Really good. Hell yeah. That's just the way that my brain read that, so. Cyberpunk mentioned. Oh, sorry, Mike. I completely missed your comment there. Lots of interesting ideas. I'm sure I'll explore them, as always. Thank you very much. No, thank you so much for posting as well. I mean, awesome work on the presentation. It looks really, really good. And then we got Guillaume as well. Hello, Guillaume. Good evening to you. Bonsoir. All right. Next person up. I think now we're in free-for-all mode. Oh no, not true. Last one. Hadzino. A bunch of images. Let me see. What did you add? Questions. How do I make a really cool mesh breakdown? How do you make one? So, okay, in very broad terms, right? Like how you make a good mesh breakdown is you reuse and simplify the big stuff that you have in your scene, right? So in your scene, I would strip out all the cabinets, like just use like the tileable on the floor, and then turn that into like a floor that you can use to then present your assets on, right? So just a small but chunky hello before going to bed. Those gorgeous 3D projects will drive me to dreamlands. Bye, Guillaume. Thanks for popping in. So yeah, reusing the asset that you have to create like a presentation table, right? And then whatever you want to present, you just have that as like a separate thing. So what that looks like is, yeah, you could have like a bit of the floor. You have your asset right in the middle, and then what you can do is then be like, okay, here's all my textures. These are the textures that I use. This is the triangle count that I use, blah, 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 blah. And that's pretty much it. It kind of depends, from this point on, it kind of depends on what you want to present. But what it needs to have is your poly count, your UVs, your textures, wireframe. That's like a little combination of what you need to have in your presentation. I'm sure that if you go and check out like the portfolio reviews that I've done like in the past, you're gonna find this a lot. I think I bring this up like every time. And the same thing for materials. Like you can just present them in the same sort of way, just without the asset. But I feel like in context always helps a lot. If you have some thoughts about the shots you don't like or something best to show, I feel like honestly it would be good for you to go through them yourself and pick out the shots yourself. It's honestly a good exercise in like, okay, what do I like about this one? What do I don't like about this one? If you want to get my quick opinion on it, not this one because we have this one. These ones are the same. Did I just drag in the same two ones? That could be my bad. Don't really like these ones. I think, look, like basically what it comes down to is that this is your main screenshot, right? If it doesn't have like this sort of quality of like how good it looks, if it doesn't present your assets in the same sort of way, it's just a chopping block, right? So stuff like this could potentially work if we do like a little bit more work with the presentation, right? Like how do we make it more interesting? How do we, again, like how do we add like a light to the focal point? Like how do we present it in a nice way? Maybe there's like a couple of whiskey glasses. How do we make glass look good? There's a lot of stuff that we need to solve because anything that stands out as like, ooh, that doesn't look great, that is going to detract from the rest of your images, right? So everything needs to be as good as like the main one, or at least in some sense add its own value, right? So for example, this one, I do really like that one. The only thing to be sort of careful of is maybe changing the camera a little bit so that we don't have like all of this, because again, this is attracting a lot of focus. But this one is quite good as well. Dun-dun. Nice session, Tim, as always. See you next week. Thank you so much for being here, Anna. I appreciate it. Sticking it out to almost the end. So let's see. Let's continue. I think this one can potentially work. I don't like the camera. Like, I think the camera where it's aligned with like the desk is like a very static or a boring angle, right? Like if we're looking at it from like the side and we're looking at it from like this sort of angle, like sort of like looking down, it'd be weird to draw. It's probably going to make more sense. Something like that where like we're doing something more interesting with the composition. I think that has the potential of being something, right? And then same thing here, like just a bunch of pens. Like if this is like a bunch of pens, like add like a contract or two, and then what is the contract for, right? Because these detail shots, they could be good, but they're like not really telling us anything, right? It's just like, oh, it's 3 pens on like a cupboard. Like that's not really that interesting by itself, right? We got to really sell it. So let's add a question mark to these. And then I think there's one behind here. There's one thing that I don't like about this shot, and it's you've done such a beautiful pass on like the rest of the surfaces with like wear and tear and all that kind of stuff. Like they're all nicely weathered. It just doesn't feel like this cupboard had the same sort of weathering. It feels very basic compared to the other ones. So that's why, I don't know, there's something weird about the proportions as well. It just feels a little bit off to me. So that's why I don't really like this shot all too much, because that dresser is gonna get like a lot of criticism from me. So yeah, I know they were pretty harsh, but hey, you only want to show your best work. The main shot is your money shot. That one is really good already, and that makes sense because you've been focusing on it for such a long time. But it's time to get like some of these additional ones also in the same position so that they wow the people, right? And it's really thinking about like, okay, in this shot, what do I want to stand out? So maybe I can make a different sort of light setup for this one and kind of make the stuff that is standing out in the scene stand out more. Cool. Quick one there, Hatino. So thank you for sharing your work. We're nearly there, dude. Nearly there. I think this is probably going to be the last week, and then we're good to go. Hello, Alejandro. Popping in and saying hello, hello, hello. How are you doing? Okay. A couple more. So we got one from Matt. Yeah, so Matt had a couple of questions because it's his first time working with tileable textures. Not completely sure if I did it correctly. So the first one was the recommended number of tiles and the recommended texture size. For this one, honestly, go to our website, read our documentation on texel density. It's free, freely available for everyone. So go and check that out. That's going to help you a lot. That is going to help you decide like your texture size. It will be a little bit confusing in the beginning. I tried to make it as easy to digest as possible. But yeah. When it comes to the number of tiles, it depends on if you can see the repetition, right? With very generic stuff like this, we're not really seeing that much repetition, right? I mean, we can kind of see like this splotch, for example, right? Like that little splotch is repeating. Maybe that could... It's not that much of an issue now, but let's say if you were to add a lot of dirt onto this, then we're running into an issue, right? Now it's fine. Yeah, that goes into your second question as well. Like, do we create these tileables with dirt already on them? Usually the way that I prefer to work is I prefer to keep it more modular and more freeform so that I can have like my base tileable, which in your case is your roof tiles, and then just have like a generic dirt that I can then start using on the roof in like a subtler way, but I can also use that on the floor as well. I can just reuse the same tileable and with vertex paint like blend them all together. Another way of doing this is if you want like a more specific look, you can actually have a dirty or like a clean and then a dirty variation of those roof tiles and then like blend between them as well. I just prefer to do it where I can completely separate all the tileables out. And that also makes it easier. Let's say if I want to use like, oh, my dirt tileable, I can use that in the same project, right? Because it's no longer attached to a specific texture that I'm using in another project. Doing good, loaded with tasks, but good to be busy again. Let's go. Loaded with tasks, love to hear it. Yeah, I'd rather be busy than be bored, you know? Come on. Cool. Those were 2 questions. Thank you so much for the updates, Matt. Stuff is looking good. Like, honestly, the textures are looking quite good as well. Even though I know you quote-unquote cheated because you did them in Painter, not in Designer. Honestly, to a certain degree, like what works, right? Like it's just about the end result that matters. If you do them in Painter, that's fine. If you were gonna be like a material artist, it is gonna be good to know Designer. But is that a requirement now for this project? No, it is not. So yeah, cool stuff, Matt. Thank you for sharing. And then we'll do Makefile, and then we'll do Write 1. So the mountain monastery. Questions. How does the fog look currently? My concern if that it's too intense. I do want to do something more dramatic. Looking if that makes sense. Yeah, so I do like the dramatic look. It is just the intensity and the consistency of it like doesn't really make that much sense, right? In terms of like how dense it is. So for example here, it would just be nicer to have this sort of breakup, because if we zoom in, this section looks really good because we have like a contrast or like a like a s- like a variation in the thickness of the fog that is happening, right? Which makes it look like really interesting compared to where you have like these sort of sections. I don't know, it becomes less convincing. Also looking at like how they roll up a mountain, right? Having them like almost go into or like roll up on a mountain like that could be like pretty cool. But I think when you talk about like more dramatic, I think it's not necessarily about using them in this way. It's just about separating the volumes a bit more, right? And then also keeping into account like the distance as well, because still like these mountains look like really far in the background, but we're not really getting like a dramatic atmospheric fog that gives us that feeling that they're so far, right? So that would still be something to look into. But I even encircled it here, right? I love what is happening here. So if we can get some of that feeling more in the rest of the areas, that would be cool. So more atmospheric fog. I just want to see more, like less in the distance, basically, right? What it comes down to. Also, we're high in the mountains. That could be something to consider with like clouds. Just in terms of like, hey, if we're already so high up, is there going to be like an additional layer on top of us that is going to be clouds? Something to consider, right? Thank you for the sub, Laura. I appreciate it. Cool. Second is the new lighting an improvement compared to the old one. I personally prefer the new directional light. I'm gonna start clouds next week. Well, no. To clarify, maybe we don't need clouds, right? Because if we're so high up, like the fog that we see is basically just like the cloud cover, right? That could be something to play around with. But that's up to you though, because I also have some concerns with like just the bright blue. I don't know. It might look really empty. There are definitely some concerns there, but yeah, it's something to try out, I guess. But I'll leave that up to you. So the second question is the new lighting improvements compared to the old one. I prefer the new directional light. Let's see. So yeah, it is different. Adam was saying that it still feels a little bit flat. I look at some refs if you haven't already. The ones that Tim posted are super cool. God, I forgot which ones I posted. Which one did I post? When was this? God, I can't even keep up with like the stuff that I'm posting anymore. What the hell? Yeah, it is a little bit flat, and it kind of goes into like the same sort of thinking that I'm thinking here, right? It's I really want to push. Yeah, you are right. You're next. I really want to push like the separation between like the different layers, right? Like that's really what I want to do. So for is that the new one? Oh, well, I was comparing the wrong one. I guess that's also like a. I guess that's also like a statement by itself, I guess. God dang it. Okay. Thanks for bringing that up, Macvel. Okay. So we're doing it in this way then. Yeah, I do like it's more impactful, right? Because it's not just like blue. And to be fair, like the clouds and all that kind of stuff look way better in this one. So that's for sure. Bulwarp is saying dark, light, dark. Yeah. Or like light, dark, like a variation, right? Yeah. Yeah, honestly, like some sort of like more separation. I feel like the new one is already like a bit better. But even like this guy, right? I wanna see like a better separation in the foreground here because they blend together. And then also, God, yeah, I really want to have like more atmospheric fog or like some sort of blurring or something like that in the background because it feels like there's not enough separation happening there. You know what I hate sometimes about giving feedback like this is that I can't go into the project and do a bunch of stuff myself. God, I would love to play around with this. Layer value separation. What is also interesting to think about if you're doing the lighting, right? Like if we're doing like, oh, it's almost like it's close to getting dark. Maybe playing with like lights here. Or maybe even like on the bridge or something like that. Thank you for being here, Slate. Especially for being here all the way at the end. That's awesome. Thank you so much and have a good evening. Sorry, I'm getting distracted again. So, yeah. God, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have like any good recommendations at this point. I feel like running out of suggestions. Not specifically for the scene, right? It's just like brain power is running a little bit low tonight. What is Adam saying? Let's lean on Adam for a little bit. So some shadows could be introduced by having shadow casters, meshes outside of camera view. That helps you create a negative space for light. That's a good shout. Like just having like a little bit of stuff happening here in the foreground. That helps again, like with the layer separation here, right? That I pointed out. That could be helpful. And even just having like a rock here in the foreground. That could be helpful. And then something to do with the background, yeah. Like potentially separating this out even more than it currently is by having like a fog sheet behind it. Because if you look at for example like Otto Astera's work, he does that a lot, right? It's probably my favorite example to go towards. So if we go to Otto Astera's work, I mean you can kind of see it here on the artwork as well. If you were to look here, like there's like a really clear separation between the foreground, midground, and background, right? And that adds that epic scale, that depth. And that is what would be interesting to focus on more, right? We can see that in like all of his work basically. Like for example, this one, same thing, right? Like darker foreground, then midground, separated by a lot of fog in between, and then you have like the epic, again, like silhouetted with like a lot of fog, you know, like all fake fog cards, just like to highlight and enhance the silhouette. It's all just like hand placed, like even the stuff here in the foreground, you know, just separating it all out. And it's a lot of just like going back and forward and seeing how it works, right? But he's like, he does it in a very effective and a very dramatic way, but it works so well. So yeah. And of course, he brings like a lot of dramatic lighting and like a lot of dramatic colors into the mix too. So his work could actually be an interesting reference to look at. Yeah, I hope that was helpful, Mikval. I think that the last kind of points that I made, I mean, God, it was a little bit all over the place, but I hope that the example of Otto was at least helpful in that case. Right. I'll try some stuff and use yours and Adam's feedback. Yeah, and thank you for posting your work, Mikval. As always, lovely to see the updates. It's going to be cool. All right, last one for today. Round 1. Let's have a look. Some feedback on the current rocks. The right one is still in progress, so that's the right one. In the reference, they are more square shaped. In the reference, is it better to get the rocks looking? Is it better to get the rocks looking towards the scene, as in like the same as the scene, or? Let's see. So I think I see what you mean though with like your silhouettes, right? Like you have your big shapes. Let's talk about shapes for a bit. So your big shapes is like your silhouette and all that kind of stuff, right? There's nothing too big happening there. Like if you really look at it, like what we're looking at is cubes. They're very safe in the way that they're set up, right? Also because I mean the concept art like does do it in the same way, but they're not really that adventurous. I would honestly grab a couple of these and just start bashing them into each other and just see what you can get out of it, right? And then honestly, for this step, if we're gonna generalize a bit, for the big shapes, you don't want no brain. You just want to smash stuff together. That's it. The more you think in the big steps, the more you lose. So no brain, just smash. You just want to just bash stuff together. You don't care about it. You don't care how it looks. We're going to clean it up later. And then with the medium ones, that's where we can actually start reintroducing like some shapes, right? That's where we can basically look at the chaos that we created, and try to find some of the order that we want, right? And then obviously we'll go from the small, and that's just like more detail work, right? Always go check our sculpting workshop with Ivana for any refreshers on this stuff. But yeah, if we can't do like this stuff correctly, anything that's gonna come downstream is gonna be dependent on the big shape. So we need to be able to just like smash stuff together before we get to that stage, right? Just smash. Yep, exactly. Gonna be a rock ogre, you know, just smash rocks together. Let's see though. Because you mention your reference, right? Now, kind of have these guys here. Don't look off bad. However, what I want to challenge you is I want to see some actual real references for this. It is good that you have a concept to guide your hand and to kind of keep you like, hey, look, this is what we're going to be doing. but real references are where we're gonna be seeing like the shapes, right? And honestly, for stuff like this, I would be just look for, I don't know, it's gonna be something generic, like a rock-covered tunnel or something like that, right? And then see what comes up and see if you do like a little bit of digging, if you can get close to something like this. Because yeah, that's gonna help a lot in terms of like the shapes and like what rocks are kind of used. Because there's nothing wrong here, but it's like, I mean, it's very difficult to get like any sort of shapes because there's brushstrokes, right? Like even something like this already feels like a bit more adventurous than like the shape that you have going, right? Let's see. So the right one is still in progress. In the references, they're more square shaped. Better to get rocks looking towards the scene. Yeah, I'm not sure because you say references, but I don't know which references you're talking about necessarily. Like if you're talking about like the concept or the reference. I'm not too sure. But in the meantime, question number 2 is how do I find more camera angles of the scene? You really can't. Because this is really a scene that is built on like a single camera angle, right? Like if you want to do more camera angles, I mean, your camera angles are going to be restricted by their focal point, right? Your focal point is going to be here. So you can have a camera looking at it like this. You can have a camera looking like down. You can have a camera looking at here. But they're all just going to showcase the same thing, right? Like they're not really going to showcase like something new because that is what the essence of the scene is. It is just like, hey, this is a tunnel, right? So the focus point is always going to be the same. So if you want more cameras, we need to do like more work and like come up with ideas of, hey, maybe what we can do is this person is actually using this as like a little fallout shelter or whatever. So how do we then add our own spin on top of it to kind of make it work for like multiple camera angles? Because then we could have one camera angle that is something like this, right? But then we also have like one inside of the tunnel that is showcasing like how he lives or like what he uses to survive or something like that, right? But that means that if we want to have more, yeah, we need to build more content if we want to have more camera angles. So unfortunately, if you're going with like a scene that is purely focused on one thing and it's not even going to be 360, more often than not, it's just going to be like a singular camera angle that you're working towards. There's also nothing wrong with that, right? If you just do like a single camera scene and you effectively execute on it, like they have the potential to be as good as one that has like multiple camera angles. It just depends on the way that you execute on it, right? But yeah, it's up to you. More camera angles. Like if you want like a couple more angles, then we need to add more content. Right? I hope that was helpful, right one? But yeah. I mean, it's a cool concept. And like you could actually build some like interesting stuff around it, you know? As in like, oh, I want to develop the story of this person a little bit more or this tunnel a little bit more, right? You could do some pretty interesting stuff. Because it's just an ominous shape, right? You could have like bad stuff come out of the tunnel. You can have like good guys use the tunnel for good. You can have bad guys use it for good. Like there's so many options there. But yeah. Thank you so much for showing off Route 1. That is appreciated. Yeah. Yeah, and Adam coming in with some really good feedback as well. Appreciate you, Adam. With some really good feedback. Dang, Adam is on a roll. He's giving everyone feedback. Jeez. Thank you so much, Adam, for doing that. Appreciate it. More voices, better people get. Awesome. Okay. Let's switch it on over because we are done for today. We're a little bit over time. So I am going to head on out. I wish you all a nice evening. And yeah, for the people that are new here, come and join us. We're a lovely community, you know, definitely not biased. But I hope to see you there. Anyways, see you next week for another Whip Wednesday. See you then.